social development department and economic development department, sports, rec, arts and culture. Some of them will be here today. We will be saying to them, you have to create opportunities so we get the people to different, out of the streets, out of the corners, to be able to begin to make a fundamental difference.
The manufacturing sector recorded a significant improvement in July. Stats SA says the manufacturing production increased by 1.7% in July compared with the same time last year. It says the largest positive contributions were made by food and beverages, while the largest negative contributions were made by the motor vehicles, parts and accessories, and other transport equipment divisions. Stats SA's Nikolai Klaassen.
National manufacturing output increased by 1.7% year-on-year in July. 5 of the 10 manufacturing divisions recorded a rise in production, with the food and beverages and metals and machinery divisions the largest positive contributors. Manufacturers in food and beverages recorded an increase of 9.5% year-on-year, and metals and machinery output rose by 5.2% year-on-year.
And the EU's competition commissioner, Margrethe Vestager, has hailed 2 rulings against US technology giants Apple and Google as big wins for European citizens. She says that a verdict by the EU's highest court that Apple must pay $14 billion in unpaid taxes to Ireland was a victory for tax justice.
The Court of Justice confirmed the decision from 2016 by the European Commission. Ireland granted Apple unlawful aid, which Ireland now has to recover. And this judgment is final. The Court also confirms the Commission decision in the Google Shopping antitrust case. And also this is a final judgment.
The top story at 3 o'clock, Israeli diplomats have been instructed to lobby members of the U.S. Congress to pressure South Africa to drop its legal proceedings in the ICJ over the war in Gaza. For SAFM News, Kimudupi Makhaleme.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Bafana versus South Sudan clash underway, and F1 design great Newey joins Aston Martin. More details at 3:30.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation.
Liverpool FC have collected maximum points in their opening 3 matches of the 2024-2025 season. They want more victories.
Look at the white shirts coming here. Salah! Salah scores at Old Trafford again.
Meanwhile, Forest want to dictate terms at Anfield.
High towards the back post. One with a free header.
This is the Premier League. Catch the spectacular clash between Liverpool FC and Nottingham Forest on Saturday, 14 September at 3:30 p.m. live on SABC3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game. The breakers of the barriers have demonstrated that bravery, courage and excellence often exceed any boundaries and limits. This exhilarating moment is the 19th edition to celebrate and honor the tangible impact of women in sport. Experience the Momentum G-Sport Awards 2024 on Thursday, 12 September at 6:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and reports on SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, what moves the National Pulse today? Let's see. A lot to come. We will talk about all those things for the next 3 hours. My name is Ashraf Garda. This is the National Pulse. And when we talk about what is it that moves it, be aware that you are a key factor in driving those conversations. So to call in, it's 086 000 2032. Always great to connect with you. You can also send us a voice note to 0614 104 107. And you can text us as well, WhatsApp on that same number. But also, as many people do, you can post comments on Facebook. I'll try and make an effort to read some of them today to say you're here, but also add your thoughts on the conversations that we have. And then do the same thing on the X platform. So just tweet it out using the hashtag #TheNationalPulse, right? So yesterday, one of the big issues that we've picked up is that over 2,000 teaching posts are due to be cut in the Western Cape. I wonder what you make of that. The obvious thing would be there's a budget cut, so we can't afford it. But 2,000, even more, almost 2,500 people, that must have an impact. Well, first of all, on the lives of the teachers and their families. It means 2,000 people unemployed, potentially impacting at least 10,000 people. I think that's a given. And then what about the learners? There has to have an impact on the learners. So what I'm reading immediately would mean, okay, they're being cut, no budgets, which means what? Bigger classes, right? So here's a question to you, and I'd love to get your thoughts right away. What for you is the optimal number of learners that should be in a class, where beyond that number, it's just not on? And I know some schools have as few as 15 or 20 people in a class, others go up to 30, others go up to 40. But if it goes beyond that, what happens then? If it goes beyond that number, does it then get to a position where actually it's a complete no? So if you have a thought on that, feel free to connect, because we're going to talk about that in a few minutes' time. Also be aware that we also will touch on the other big issue, which is some of the big issues that have affected us, including some developments around Gauteng Health and that issue of Tom London. Well, he's issued a statement. We'll hopefully be talking to him as well shortly. In fact, we will talk to him shortly about just what has happened since then, because you also know now, you'll be aware that there's been a position whereby there's been some support coming for him from Gayton Mackenzie, the Minister of Sport as well. Right, we'll also touch on the issues of Tanzania. There's been an issue of, certainly a leading political figure in opposition who's been killed, whether that was an assassination or knockoff. We can find out exactly what that means, but it doesn't really augur well at all for that country and what that means in a land where generally things have been pretty stable indeed. In fact, we may well cover that story first. We'll see what happens right after this.
X at SFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Okay, let's. In fact, so what we'll do, we'll chat to the General Secretary of Equal Education, Nonqedo Madubule, shortly. But let's get to Global Watch, and we focus on a country every single day of the week, right? Yeah. So today, let's talk about Tanzania. As they gear up for their local election in December, a general election next year. So local election in December, general election next year. Now, the killing of Ali Mohammed Kibao, who's a former leader of Tanzania's main opposition party, is it Chadema party? Well, they've that certainly has heightened tensions in that country. And there has been calls for more protests. There's also been understanding kidnappings of other members of the Chadema party. So let us understand the story behind that story with Nixon Katemba, who's the African Affairs commentator connected to Channel Africa. Nixon, good chatting to you once again. Hello.
Good having you here in your studio, and also sharing the little knowledge that we know about the story.
Well, I tell you what, whatever little knowledge you have, please pass it on. What has happened? I mean, I saw, first of all, so we know that Ali Mohammed Kibao has been killed, right?
Yes, he was traveling from the Dar es Salaam city up to the port city of Tanga, where he was going on other engagements, and they tell that he was kidnapped from a bus by armed people and disappeared with him. Eventually, he was found dead. But what is interesting is that the police was called to pick up his body, only to find out when preliminary post-mortem were done that he was beaten and then poured acid on his face. I should mention that these are graphic for sensitive listeners,
of course, yeah.
We should mention it out there. But that is the nature of his death. There are several discussions that are ensuing from this particular incident. One,
okay, maybe just pause on that. Let's just get to the first part. The issue that he travelled to that port city by public transport. Is that what you're saying? By bus, right?
That's correct.
It's a bit strange. I'm just thinking. And then, is there any contestation that he was kidnapped, or is that given that he was kidnapped from the bus, taken somewhere, and then never saw alive again? Is that sort of checked out that that's what happened, or is that open to speculation?
Where that hasn't been disputed by either the government or the party itself. There have been at least one version of the circumstances leading up to his death, unless otherwise proven by the police in Tanzania and the party itself through its own investigations. So far, that's what we know.
Okay, right. Then you were saying, you were saying in terms of what
So
are
there are several aspects to this kidnapping or death of Mr. Ali Kibao. One, Tanzania is going to the elections in 2025. And there are those speculations that maybe this death could be and work of political violence. The second one was that could be internal dynamics with the political party itself or going towards these elections. I should mention, however, that Tanzania is one of the most peaceful country in the region, and Tanzania is not known for political violence. The third point that I should mention, that even when there are issues blaming the government maybe to have been involved in this, I should mention that it's the current president, Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, who opened up the political space, even to the extent of inviting opposition leaders to come back. The one who had attempted the assassination in his life, likes of Antipas Tundu Lissu, was welcomed by government to come and do his political activity freely in the country after being in self-imposed exile.
So then, what do how do we reach any conclusion on this? And the one would be, if he's abducted, it's not a common criminal. Clearly, I mean, it has to be a political abduction, kidnapping and then murder, or could there be evidence otherwise?
Well, unless there is evidence otherwise, we need to allow the investigation to run. So when there is a conclusive investigation on the circumstances of his death and kidnapping, then we'll be able to know. But at this point, of course, in a political environment of such a nature, people comes up with different theories on what could have led. But the way I know Tanzania, this is not the kind of death that could have happened owing to maybe government-sponsored political killing. I really, or for that fact, I really rule it out unless proven otherwise.
Because normally it would always be like, who's the ones it would be government? So you're saying, not the government, certainly not the president in terms of her position.
Yes. Of course, you can't rule out some of this. Tanzania is an exception to other the regional countries. Take, for instance, in Kenya, where the likes of Chris Musando, a senior figure in the Electoral Commission, disappeared, and his fingerprint were said to have been used to different nefarious activities thereof. The likes of the killing of the Professor George Saitoti in 2010, if not 2011. And many other killings that have happened in that particular region, in Burundi, in Rwanda, or in Uganda, and in Kenya. But this is not the case in Tanzania. Of course, there are historical issues that have happened before, the likes of the killing of Sokoine, I think in the early 90s or late 80s, which was linked to a difference between him and the late President Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere. But there has never been a really political-driven killing in Tanzania.
What then, based upon what we know, what then do you think, what impact will his killing have on the local election and next year's general election?
Well, I have my own theory around that there could be a situation where you have to create a narrative to paint a picture about the election themselves, either coming from government, either coming from people aligned to government, either coming from the people aligned within the opposition owing to the political dynamics within Chadema itself. As we speak, there's unspoken of contestation of power within Chadema. Mm-hmm. In my view, that could have led to Ali Kibau's
So an in-party assassination.
In-party problem. But those in-party internal problem could be used to buy sympathy from the international community that there is still kind of heavy-handed political climate in Tanzania. So for me, I have to be careful on how I view this situation, particularly with the death of Ali Kibau, because I know the East African region is loaded with so many stories when it comes to political killings and many other issues for that matter. But for this particular killing, I doubt that government was involved.
Okay. Well, just lastly, what has the president said, Samia Hassan? What has she said post the news of Ali's passing away?
Immediately after his death was announced, and rather reported to the police, the president came out that this cannot be tolerated in a democratic state. He offered his condolences to the family and to the political party itself, Chadema, and promised to assist in thorough investigation by allowing state institution mandated with that particular task to do a thorough investigation and come to the conclusion of what really happened in the death of this person.
Let's leave it as before we get to what happens next, because that's about we don't really know. Appreciate you giving up. Unless there's something else you want to add on to?
No, what I want to add on is
very
that
quickly,
it's around the issue of a narrative that in the international media organization you see that an opposition figure has been killed because by government-sponsored. Whereas if you contrast that with what happened in Uganda recently with Bobby Wine being injured, yet the international media organization has said he was shot in the leg. So we always have to look at the narrative and the dynamics in the context in which issues happen.
There we are. Let's leave it at that. Nixon Katemba, really appreciate you giving up your insights to us here on the National Pulse. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You can follow Nixon as well on Channel Africa as he talks about all things Africa.
At Specsavers, we're committed to offering affordable and professional eye care. That's why we're offering 1,500 Rand worth of savings with our winter promotion. Get a free frame up to the value of 1,500 Rand or use the 1,500 Rand on one of our leading lens enhancements. To qualify, simply purchase a comprehensive eye examination and prescription frame and lenses. Book online or call your nearest store today. Specsavers for affordable eye care and a whole lot more. T's and C's apply.
Samson Nigati have a secret plan to grab maximum points, but the Eagles refuse to travel back to West Africa empty-handed. The South confronts the West. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Witness the beauty of African football. Eswatini versus Mali on Tuesday, 10 September at 3 p.m. Live at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
SAFM. This Heritage Month, SAFM invites you to celebrate the rich tapestry of our nation's diverse cultures. From the vibrant beats of our traditional music to the flavors of our unique cuisines, every culture tells a story of strength, unity, and identity. We honor the heroes and heroines who laid down their lives for our freedom, reminding us that our shared heritage is what makes us strong. Together as one, we celebrate who we are because our culture is our identity. This Heritage Month, let's celebrate every culture, every story, and every voice. Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Okay, we did say earlier on we'll be chatting to the General Secretary of Equal Education. What we'll do, we've just changed tack now. The issue still remains at least 2,000 teachers, maybe even more than that, set to be cut by the Western Cape Education Department, right? And what does all that mean? My guest now is Sibongile Kwazi, who's the SATU Western Cape Provincial Secretary. Sibongile, thank you for connecting to the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and good afternoon to the listeners. Thank you for having me in your show.
Thank you. Right. What do you make of this news of more than 2,000 teachers being cut?
We believe that this will be a disaster for the province because we are talking of the quality of teaching and learning. And if we lose so many teacher posts, it would mean that we will be left with overflowing classrooms, especially in our poor working class schools that are mainly occupied by your so-called colored and African children.
Okay, so I understand in terms of one thing is the actual cuts, but I understand SATU itself has declared a dispute. Give us a backstory to that.
The employer is indicating that they are not retrenching teachers. And technically, they may be true because there is no retrenchment tool in the public service. But the reality is that they are laying off many contract teachers who have been in the system for the whole of 2024 and even for 3 years. In the education system, we have a collective agreement that was concluded by all trade unions who are party to the Education Labour Relations Council, where we agreed that all educators who are 3 months in a vacant post and are qualified for that post, then their status should be changed from temporary to permanent. Why that is important at this stage is that since there is no retrenchment tool in the public service, the jobs would be safe for those temporary educators if their status was changed to permanent. So our fight at this stage is on the dispute that we have lodged with the Education Labour Relations Council based on non-compliance with the collective agreement 4 of 2018 regarding the conversion of the status of
what about the fact that the Western Cape Education Department simply says, besides their dispute with you, that they actually can't afford to maintain these teachers because of national budget cuts? I mean, is that not a realistic position? I mean, they can only do so much.
Our argument on that is that these budget cuts were not only aimed in the Western Cape, but we are the first one to announce the reduction in the basket of posts. So, if other provinces are managing it, why can't our employer in this province also manage it?
But maybe have they explained why they can't? I mean, in terms of your conversations with them.
That is emotional blackmail to even say that the teachers were not supposed to get salary increases for last year. Everybody knows and is aware of the fact that public service workers didn't receive an increase or a formal increase for a number of years. So it would be emotional blackmail to the teachers of this country to tell them that they were not supposed to get salary increases.
Okay, what then would be the win-win solution? You have the Western Cape Department of Education who's saying they don't have the money and they therefore have to cut, and they have to cut over 2,500 teachers. There's the teachers themselves who tend to lose jobs. There's SATU that doesn't want to lose their own teachers as part of a union. There's potentially so many families are affected, and there's the learners, because that will change things, right? What then for you is the realistic win-win situation? Because everybody has to come out of this winning, otherwise you have a complete breakdown.
The provincial department has a responsibility to speak to their counterparts at national government. That will include the National Minister of Education or of Basic Education. He must speak with his counterparts in the government of national unity so that Treasury gives more funds to the province so that teachers can be employed. Because the reality is that we are sitting with overcrowded classrooms now, and every beginning of the year in our province, we remain with unpaid learners for months on end. So the situation will be even serious next year. We will be sitting with more learners who will not have a place in school.
All right.
Because the schools will be full.
I think you're quite right. I mean, absolutely. Already classes are overcrowded. Less teachers can only mean less classes, which means even bigger overcrowding. So that's a given. But just as we wrap up very, very quickly, right, are you suggesting that the Western Cape Education Department actually has a solution and they're just not using the solution to be able to retain these teachers?
There are options we have given for them to explore, which they haven't done. We said, let us put the Back on Track program on hold because it would save us more than R1 billion, which can be plowed or reprioritized into securing teacher posts. We have said, let us put on hold for now the systemic evaluation, and that will be able to free up millions of rand to fund more educator posts. But they must still stick to their counterparts at national level, because a loss in the teacher basket is a loss for our poor communities.
All right. Let's say we can leave it. Appreciate you giving off your time. That certainly is the perspective from the South African Democratic Teachers Union in the Western Cape. Let's get the news now. Just go on 3:30. Here's Madupi.
Thank you very much, and Ashraf Garda. In your headlines this hour, Israeli diplomats have been instructed to lobby members of the U.S. Congress to pressure South Africa to drop its legal proceedings in the ICJ over the war in Gaza. 7 police officers and 1 civilian have appeared before the Durban Magistrates Court in KZN for extortion-related crimes, and the U.S. President and his Vice President are expected to visit all 3 sites of the September 11th attacks when the nation observes their 23rd anniversary tomorrow. A full news update coming up 4.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, Winnie Mandela Drive northbound in Denfern has delays towards Stone River Boulevard. Molibongwe Drive westbound in Sharon Lee has a crash reported near President Fashir Drive. In central Johannesburg, the M1 southbound is slow moving towards Crown Interchange, and the M2 westbound slow moving near the Rizik Street exit. In KZN, the M7 westbound is queuing towards Belleville Road exit. The M13 eastbound in Kloof has a crash reported on the top of Fields Hill, and track congestion reported in that Bayhead Umbelio area, so you're asked to expect delays. In Cape Town, the M3 northbound is queuing towards Rhodes Drive. The M5 northbound is slow moving towards the N1 Kuburg interchange. The N7 Jakes Hartwell Drive southbound is slow moving towards Voortrekker Road, and Bakenkrag Street outbound slow moving towards the elevated freeway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapeli.
Right, you have got your eyes and ears on Bafana.
Absolutely. A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. Bafana are currently in action against South Sudan in the second AFCON qualifier. The match got underway at 3 p.m. and Coach Hugo Bruce made two changes, with Sipho Chain coming in the goalposts and Tapelo Morena coming into that starting 11. In terms of that match, it's 30 minutes in, and South Africa and South Sudan are sitting on 1-1. South Sudan started the scoring in the 15th minute through a penalty, and then Oswan Apollos pulled one back for South Africa in the 17th minute. Remember that South Africa are looking for 3 points to keep up with Uganda, who top Group K with 4 points, and Congo second on 3. Meanwhile, Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture Gayton McKenzie says that he doesn't have confidence in the South African Football Association until the results of Bafana improve.
I told the man that you're talking about, Dr. Denny Jordan, and I told Safa, I give you 2 deliverables. I'm the ultimate accounting authority when it comes to football and sport in this country. I said to them, qualify for the World Cup, qualify for the African Nations Cup. I'm giving them all the support now, but I can't be giving people support until kingdom come. That's not before me.
Well, still staying with football, Harry Kane is set to become the 10th male England player to reach 100 caps, and the first men's centurion since Wayne Rooney reached the milestone back in November 2014. He's England's all-time top scorer with 66 goals in 99 internationals, and since his debut in March 2015, the former Tottenham player has made 86 starts for his country and been captain 72 times.
This is one that I'm extremely proud of. I think it shows great consistency over a long period of time. I think when you look at some of the other players who have achieved it, some of our greatest ever players. So something I'm really excited for. I have my family there to, enjoy the moment as well. And I think for sure a moment when I'm retired that I'll probably look back on with immense pride. But I'm excited. I'm excited for the game. I'm excited to be back at Wembley, and I just hope it can be a special night all round with a win and hopefully a goal as well.
In motorsport, Adrian Newey says that he joined Aston Martin to help them lead to the Formula One World Championship. The 65-year-old designer's new contract with the title of Managing Technical Partner was announced today at the team's F1 base at Silverton. Newey, regarded as the greatest F1 designer in history, has also become an Aston Martin shareholder. Now, the team did not initially reveal the length of the deal, but it's reported that it's a 5-year contract worth up to a possible £30 million. That's 704 million rand a year, including bonuses and add-ons. Then finally in tennis, Australia's hopes of ending their 21-year title drought in Davis Cup have suffered a blow, with Alex de Minaur ruled out of the group stage due to lingering problems with his hip. Now, de Minaur made a run to the US Open quarterfinals, but was hampered by the hip as he exited the Grand Slam in straight sets defeat by Briton Jack Draper. Australia captain Leighton Hewitt confirmed that world number 11 was sidelined ahead of the opener against France in Valencia later on today. With that said, it is a wrap from my side.
So, just Bafana, it's 1-1. I mean, that can't stay that way.
Yeah, that can't stay that way. I was actually shocked that South Sudan was leading in the first 15 minutes. However, the game is not over.
Okay, and then I saw a tweet from someone who was gloating about the fact that she got it right when she said 6 medals, which suggests for the Paralympics.
Yeah.
And someone else probably thought differently. So you want to tell us that story?
I was literally spot on with 6 medals. You asked me how many medals do I think I'm going to, South Africa is going to come home with. And it was based on the fact that I think it was like 3 days left till the end of the Paralympics.
Yeah, of course.
And I just looked at the medals that we received, and it was before the wheelchair tennis medal that we received. Yeah. So, big ups to South Africa, even though it's one less than the last time out. However,
big ups to you. I mean, the stories, you got it right. I think I wanted 12, but clearly I have to lower my expectations. Maybe Gayton McKenzie will call me now as the Minister of Sport to say, no, we need 20 the next time or else. Yeah. Okay, more sport in an hour. Well done to you.
Hey, Mike, congratulations on your retirement.
Thanks, Andile.
Are you preparing for it?
Yes, but not just for myself.
For you and?
For me and my employees.
Oh.
You know, since we moved to Old Mutual Corporate, their retirement funds have not only been safe and secure, but gaining competitive returns through exposure to diverse investment markets.
Impressive.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
EFC is live this Thursday. The bantamweight title is on the line, live from the World Sports Betting Arena, as the top-ranked divisional contenders and perennial fan favorites Faiz Jacobs and Vince Bembe go to war.
Oh, big right for Faiz Jacobs. The finish is over. What a win.
When he smells blood, he hunts mercilessly for the finish.
EFC is live this Thursday. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
When self-made billionaire Wilton Knight rescues police detective Lieutenant Michael Long after a near-fatal shot to the face, he gives him a new identity and a new name, Michael Knight. Paired with the unique Knight Industries 2000 aka kit, they are brought in during situations where direct action might provide the only feasible solution. Kusazo Shuba and Michael Knight and Kit are ready to rise to the occasion. Channel your best retro with Knight Rider, weekdays at 12 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
X at SFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Okay, let's get to some of the calls. We'll have a thought leader conversation on decolonizing South Africa's law. That comes up just now. But Zanelli in Durban, hello.
Ashraf, how are you?
I'm very good indeed. Good talking to you. Go ahead. What's your point?
Ashraf, it looks like we still, even we are under 30 years now of democracy, but when it comes to preferred languages, when we have to express ourselves or we have to write something in government sectors or like hospitals and police stations, it seems like we are still bound on doing those things in English.
So what happened to you? Did something happen to you?
Today I went to Phoenix police station, and I was at SASA offices, so I was ordered to go to do the affidavit. So if I arrive at the police station, I find the document, the affidavit document has it's written, I wish to state as following under the oath in English/isiZulu. So I took advantage of that and I wrote my affidavit in isiZulu. If I give it to the police to sign, he just squashed it and say, where did you saw the affidavit being written in isiZulu? I pointed where there are two languages where it gives me the permission to write in the Zulu language. And he said, this is just a decoration. There is no way you can see the affidavit written in Zulu. And he just squash it and order me to write the affidavit in English. So the question is, this document is a police document. And it has these following instructions that if I wish to make an oath in this language, so how come for just a person to tell me that I shouldn't be doing and just squash that document?
Well, I tell you what, it's a huge cause for concern. I mean, I absolutely hear you. So you, just lastly, we need to move on. You obviously asked them and you objected. What did they then tell you?
No, because we always have some bad experiences when it comes to these sectors. It's a hospital, or you just do what they are saying so that you get what you want and just leave. Just leave.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying now I'm putting on national radio that the document is there and it is stating that I wish to make and following under is English or isiZulu. And it is written by their department. So, but the people there who are working, the employees are saying otherwise.
Okay, I hear you. It's their own one, and they're still not applying it. By the way, we'll talk, coming up next, we'll be chatting about decolonizing issues in South African law, and this may well fall squarely into that as well. So listen out for that, Zanele. It comes up next, okay? Thank you for your call. I appreciate you taking the time to give us your thoughts, because you obviously have your pulse racing. No question about that, and we then need to amplify that, which we've just done. Kwezi in Mthatha, hello.
Yeah, good afternoon, Ashraf. Briefly, Ashraf, the austerity measures that are being implemented by government are a grim reminder of the unbridled corruption that has been taking place in the country for the past 15 years. Now the chickens are coming home to roost. Now, Ashraf, the solution is that we need fresh minds in the trade union movement. We need to do away with the leadership that is lackluster in their approach in the trade union movement, because we have had leaders in the recent past who were obsessed with accessing political power and having access to the legislatures and so on, compromising the interests of the workers in the process. So now we need to have a very strong trade union movement, because the very same people who are instituting those austerity measures are being funded by the state to access private health care and to have their kids having access to private education at the expense of the children and the general population who is working class.
All right, I hear that. I tell you what, regarding the unions, and let's leave it at that, Tim Kwezi, I think it can never be an either or, I think it is complex at the best of times between the trade unions representing the rights of their constituency and the people who pay the wages, in this case the department, who represents their rights, and central to all of that is the resources. How much money do they really have? It can never be an either or. And I hear what you're saying about we need strong trade unions. Some may say we've always had them, right? So I don't quite know. Okay, by the way, just to make a note of this. Now, I certainly don't do this, but if you want to do it, well, it's up to you. The Powerball jackpot cannot be missed this Tuesday with a huge 100 million rand estimated jackpot. So don't get left behind. Be in it to win it by playing Powerball for an estimated 100 million rands today. You can buy your tickets now in store on the nationallottery.co.za. That's the mobile app as well, and then cell phone banking, or you can simply dial star 120 star 7529 hash. Star 120 star 7529 hash for USSD. Panda push-up play. Players must be 18 years or older. Play responsibly. Ituba is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.1 FM in Johannesburg. You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM. SAFM.
Tell you what, where I'm sitting, so let me just tell you, I'm on the 6th floor of the SABC, where SAFM studios are, right? And for the last few days, we've been overlooking where we are. We can overlook many parts of the Auckland Park region. Wits to our right, UJ to the left. We sort of smack bang in the middle. Across us is the Johannesburg Country Club, and they have been hosting the R&B Starlight Classics over the last few days. I've been watching these lights coming up in all glitter and glam over the last few days. But today, I'm looking at the same position, and I can tell you now, I've got Keys has taken some videos of it. There is a fire, and it's a huge fire. There's this pall of smoke that's emerged, black smoke coming through, and it seems far bigger than you can imagine. I hope everything is fine. What we understood, there seems to be some viewing of people sort of running away from where they are. Remember, it's a clubhouse, okay? So I'm not too sure what sparked it. I hope everybody's fine. But if people are anywhere near the western parts, sort of northwestern Johannesburg suburbs, you can't miss this. Very close to the SABC's HQ. Well, we've got some pictures, we've got some videos, and we actually will post it on the SAFM social media platforms like ASAP.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
All right. One of the things that we certainly want to talk about often enough is a thought leader conversation on a range of different issues. And today it's an interesting one about the decolonization of law, particularly the particular aspect is the field of copyright law. Because my guest is Dr. Intando Sindani from the University of Cape Town, is a PhD graduate there in commercial law. And Dr. Sindani argues that the current legal definitions of authorship reflect Euro-American sensitivities and they neglect African ways of thinking and knowing. Now, it's interesting, before we even get to my guest saying this, because I was part of a proudly South African think tank yesterday, and one of the things I said, and I remember talking to John Carney as well as Leanne Manners, we were part of this conversation, to say, I can tell you now, often when we talk on air to guests and we ask people if things work, the default answer is yes, it works. It's working in the USA and it's working in the United Kingdom. It's like a standard answer. So maybe it's a very necessary conversation we should be having. Dr. Intando Sindani, appreciate your time. You're now connected to the National Pulse.
No, thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Thank you. You probably heard my intro about something I raised yesterday, so we're in sync to a degree.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that from the generation of students that I come from, which is the Fismas Fall generation, one of the biggest problematizations that we made of society is the fact that there's an obsession with Europe and obsession with America, as if Europeans and Americans are the only people who can think or are the paragon of intellectual correctness.
Okay, so to bring it back then to your specific issue, because I mean we can talk about many issues around social, political issues, but I mean you specifically want to talk about copyright law. So what is the problem with regard to copyright law, and how would you want to change it?
Well, I must say from the onset that copyright currently in South Africa is beset by a number of problems. One of those problems, of course, emerges in the long-going discussions on the amendments that are encapsulated in the Copyright Amendment Bill. But my study is more on a conceptual and philosophical level, and I think of how authorship is defined in purposes of the law, because for your work to be protected under the scope of copyright, one of the hurdles that you have to cross is that of authorship. And I say that the definition of an author currently is a definition that has been unchanged, and is a definition that does not reflect the epistemic, the ontological, and basically the thinking patterns and traditions of black people and Africans in particular.
Okay, so give us examples of when you say it doesn't reflect it, because we're talking about the lawyer, and of course the law then is used to apply in terms of daily rulings, right?
I see. Yes, definitely. So one of the things that I say is that, for example, currently with the Copyright Act 98 of 1978, the author is defined in three ways, really. It can be a single author, so that's Ashraf, joint author, Ashraf and Ndando, communal author, that's the community of Auckland Park, community of Sotho people. And one of my arguments is that an author, in the perspective of black people and African people, exists in what we call an onto-triadic edifice of being. That is, a community and an individual in the context of Africa exist in three: the living, the dead, and the yet to be born. So I'm sure, Ashraf, you know Ukoko Esther Mahlangu, Dr. Mahlangu,
yeah, right.
Who does develop artwork and develop painting. Every time she's interviewed in the United States of America or in Europe, she often says to them that these paintings are a product of my community. And Americans applaud her, and they only think that she's referring to the community that is alive. And I argue that, and I've demonstrated that she's also referring to the yet to be born, the living and the dead. So I say that if our laws are unable, particularly copyright law is unable to reflect that epistemic disposition, then our law is Eurocentric, colonial, and needs to be changed. And the change in this way is a decolonial change.
So the fact that it hasn't been changed as yet, I mean, you've given me one example of obviously then there's prejudice, right? I suppose there are many other examples like that.
No, definitely. I mean, with the blind SA case of 2022-2023, the legislation that governs copyright in South Africa, like I said, is from 1978. And the court there in that judgment said that, or declared that parts of the legislation are unconstitutional, because they don't cater to quite a number of the constitutional politics or the politics that define the constitutional moments, such as equality, human dignity, and the like. So the area of copyright and intellectual property is largely untransformed and is beset by colonial logic to a very large extent, not many other things except just authorship and.
And the appetite for change, I mean, you're certainly putting forward your position. My question to you is that how much support do you have for it?
Well, that's a very controversial question, but there isn't much support because scholars who are my peers or who are my elders, particularly from the jurisprudence and the critical, some are calling themselves the Azanian philosophical tradition, have exposed that there's a lot of resistance to change, particularly when law is concerned. As far back as 2014, some of these scholars have been writing about how there is a deliberate effort to make law to be something that only addresses capitalist or trade-related or mercantilist aspirations. So law, particularly in intellectual property, is seen only as something that protects the property rights or the intellectual property rights of creative works, and neglects other aspects of intellectual property, such as relations, such as community, such as the shared interest in creating craft works. So there is rigidity, just to respond to your question, rigidity, resistance. What I am writing about can be considered even blasphemous or heretic, if I can use that theological expression.
Okay, so I hear you, and understandably there's a natural pushback, right? But to just to extend that conversation then, in spite of the pushback, would there be plans from yourself and maybe others, because there could be people listening to us right now, to say, hold it, maybe this is going to galvanize us. Are there any plans in place that you'd be part of, or you think there would be sufficient support down the line to be able to create the type of critical mass required to gain the traction needed to make the changes?
No, definitely. I am an activist before I'm an academic, and activists are people who mobilize even outside of books, outside of the work that we write. And we support critical formations. We work sometimes with artists. We talk to artists. We form part of conversations where artists are talking about their rights. And also I know, not me personally, but someone like my PhD supervisor, Professor Caroline Ngube, who has been involved in advising or even cautioning against the resistance, particularly to the amendments to the copyright legislation, because there have been people who have been resisting that at the behest of capitalist interests. So we are people who are engaged with society to galvanize and to also ensure that not just in copyright law, but we consider wholesale decolonial aspirations being realized and having to change the law, I think maybe if I can just add, my brother, that one of the things that we learned from the Fees Must Fall and Roads Must Fall generation is that there was an over-fetishization of the 1994 moment, particularly where law is concerned. So there's a need to relook fundamentally even other areas of law and be active in that sort of relook.
Okay, there's so many questions that emerge from this. I'm pretty certain that some people are going to respond. If not today, then certainly in the days that come ahead. Just the last thing: is there a legal lobby group? And I don't mean just you personally, but is there a legal lobby group that would be supportive of your position that you know about?
Well, Blind SA, for example,
as one, yeah, okay,
as one of them, But at the top of my head right now, I would not give you names, but I do know that there are quite a number, especially in intellectual property, a number of activist formations that support this sort of thing. I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was at an IPSA conference, which is a colloquium really for intellectual property law teachers in Africa. And that organization itself is very keen and open on questions that seek to strengthen activist voices and resistance voices where intellectual property law discourse is concerned. So those 2 organizations, IPSA itself is a legal or law organization, of course, but it's a group of scholars who support this sort of thing.
Okay, let's leave it at that. You certainly raise a range of issues, and maybe that's the whole purpose of having these thought leader conversations. You put something on the agenda, and we'll see where that goes. But certainly, you've done that. Dr. Intando Sindani, University of Cape Town, PhD graduate in commercial law. To recap, calling for the decolonization of law, particularly in the field of copyright law, and then giving many examples why the current situation just is not working. I'll just tell you now, I'm looking out as we get to the news time at the Johannesburg Country Club, and I have this view. I'll post some pictures just now. I have a view from where I am downwards, and you can see this pall of smoke. There's a fire at the Johannesburg Country Club outside, sort of just behind what seems to be like the main buildings. You've got the tennis courts, you've got what I think are sports clubs of the main building, and then just behind it, I can't exactly ascertain what the cause is and what actually is damaged. But I'll tell you now, from the size of the smoke that's now risen past my window on the 6th floor of the SAFM at the SABC, it's a huge fire, and I just hope everything is going to be okay. Let's get the news now. It's 4 o'clock. Here's Madupi.
Thank you very much, Ashraf. The top story is the U.S. To pressure South Africa over the Israel case, and the EFF makes inroads at Limpopo universities. A very good afternoon. Israeli diplomats have been instructed to lobby members of the U.S. Congress to pressure South Africa to drop its legal proceedings in the ICJ over the war in Gaza. South Africa has until the 28th of next month to present its arguments to the ICJ. A delegation headed by International Relations Minister Ronald Lamola is currently en route to Washington. Our correspondent, Sherwin Price-Peace.
The ICJ has issued several provisional orders on Israel's conduct, including on urgently needed humanitarian assistance in Gaza, and that it refrains from actions that violate the rights of Palestinians as a group. The Israeli Foreign Ministry reportedly sent a classified cable to the Israeli embassy in Washington and all its consulates in the U.S., urging them to pressure South Africa that continuing its case could come at a heavy price, including efforts towards suspending trade relations. The cable urged Israeli missions to work with lawmakers on the federal and state level to put pressure on South Africa to change its policy towards Israel. Sherwin Price-Peace, SABC News, New York.
As you heard there from Ashraf earlier, there are reports of a fire at the Johannesburg Country Club in Auckland Park, Joburg. We'll, of course, have more details for you in our next bulletin. In KwaZulu-Natal, 7 police officers and 1 civilian have appeared before the Durban Magistrates Court for extortion-related crimes. The Hawks confirmed that 3 of the officers and a civilian were arrested on Sunday for allegedly extorting money from a shop owner in Phoenix. 4 other officers who were accomplices in the alleged extortion handed themselves over to police this morning. KZN Hawks spokesperson Simphiwe Mhlongo.
The 4 suspects were arrested on Sunday, right after the incident where they have raided his shop of cigarettes They took all the stock of cigarette, alleging that it is a counterfeit or illicit cigarette, and then they left with him. Then they instructed him to phone the wife to bring 100,000 rand cash. That is when the Hawks members from Durban Serious Corruption Investigation were alerted about the incident, and they put together information and they followed up until the meeting point that they have set up for the complainant to bring cash. That's where they were arrested immediately after the transaction.
The manufacturing sector recorded a significant improvement in July. Stats SA says that manufacturing production increased by 1.7% in July compared with the same time last year. It says the largest positive contributions were made by food and beverages, while the largest negative contributions were made by the motor vehicles, parts and accessories, and other transport equipment division. Stats SA's Nikolai Klassen.
National manufacturing output increased by 1.7% year-on-year in July. 5 of the 10 manufacturing divisions recorded a rise in production, with the food and beverages and metals and machinery divisions the largest positive contributors. Manufacturers in food and beverages recorded an increase of 9.5% year-on-year, and metals and machinery output rose by 5.2% year-on-year.
The EFF Student Command has won the SRC elections at the University of Limpopo. The victory follows that of the Tshwane University of Technology's Polokwane campus. Provincial Party spokesperson Jacob Lebogo says the victory signifies the role that the EFF plays within student communities. He says the party will continue advocating for students' needs.
We are very much grateful because the students have realized that the only hope of the masses of our people, including their aspirations, are aligned with our manifesto. We are very much grateful that even our masses of our people out there, they've given our students a support. Our traditional leaders, our royal houses, have given the support to these students, especially around the area of Mankweng. We are very much thankful that we are going to be an organization of the future.
And U.S. President Joe Biden and his deputy Kamala Harris are expected to visit all 3 sites of the September 11th attacks when the nation observes their 23rd anniversary tomorrow. The Al-Qaeda-led attack on the U.S. killed almost 3,000 people in New York City, Washington, D.C., and Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Harris will embark on the visit after her presidential election debate with the Republican nominee Donald Trump tonight. The top story at 4 o'clock, Israeli diplomats have been instructed to lobby members of the U.S. Congress to pressure South Africa to drop its legal proceedings in the ICJ over the war in Gaza. For SAFM News, Kimudupima Khalemele.
In sports this hour, Erasmus names 28-man box squad for Argentina tour, and Royal AM suffer another blow in a FIFA ban case. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is slow moving towards Crown Interchange. The M1 northbound in Melrose has a crash near Athol Oaklands Road. Santon Drive westbound is slow moving towards Winnie Mandela Drive, and Mabopane Highway northbound in Pretoria queuing towards Theo Martins. In KZN, the M7 westbound queuing towards Bellville Road exit and Umgeni Road westbound slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound slow moving towards the M5 Kuburg interchange. The N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound is queuing towards Hospital Bend. Victoria Road outbound is slow moving through Woodstock, and Voortrekker Road eastbound is slow moving through Maitland. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation.
The breakers of the barriers have demonstrated that bravery, courage, and excellence often exceed any boundaries and limits. This exhilarating moment is the 19th edition to celebrate and honor the tangible impact of women in sport. Experience the Momentum G-Sport Awards 2024 on Thursday, 12 September at 6:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and reports on SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game. FC have collected maximum points in their opening 3 matches of the 2024-2025 season. They want more victories.
Look at the white shirts coming here. Salah scores at Old Trafford again.
Meanwhile, Forest want to dictate terms at Anfield.
All right, towards the back post. Wood with a free header. Yes! 1-0 Forest. Chris Wood scores.
This is the Premier League. Catch the spectacular clash between Liverpool FC and Nottingham Forest on Saturday, 14 September at 3:30 p.m. live on SABC3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
And an update in that African Cup of Nations qualifier, Bafana are leading against the South Sudanese team by 2 goals to 1. To me, we'll certainly update you even further as and when things happen. Right, that's point 1. Number 2, we'll chat to Tom London. Remember, Tom London has been talking extensively, well, certainly from his experience at the Helen Joseph Hospital. So we're going to talk to him shortly about what happens next, because he's issued a statement regarding very many issues, including the fact that he's now been funded to move into another hospital. So we'll talk about that pretty shortly. Let's, however, get to another important issue. Justice and Constitutional Development Minister Thembi Simelane returned to the Portfolio Committee on Justice today. But this time round, the minister was not defending her role, as we know, in the VBS saga. The minister was appearing with the NPA before the committee to brief them on access to the Zondo Commission database, because there's been this big issue about, no access to the database or unable to find very, really important information around that. So Abra Barber is with us, the SABC News reporter. Abra, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Ashraf.
Thank you. You've got the hard work of telling us exactly what has been going on with this important issue around vital information, isn't it?
Ashraf, you know what? Today was actually quite a bizarre meeting because it was a matter of he said, she said, and then at the end of it, we were still unclear about exactly what the complaints were, if that makes sense to you. Because it emanates from a news article that the NPA complained that they weren't being given unhindered, unfettered access to documents. This article then obviously caused a big uproar with MPs on the Justice Portfolio Committee. Both the Minister and the NPA were hauled before the committee to give responses. The Minister went on a bit of a defense. She was on in defense mode, because she was saying, but I've only been the minister for 3 months. How could I have even had the opportunity to try to block anything? I don't even know where these documents are. I don't know if they're in the cloud, if they're in the room, if they're in the sky. I don't know where they are. Shamila Batoy then had to plead her case, and she, Advocate Shamila Batoy, and she then said, what happened was there was a media briefing, and then she was asked questions about how the prosecutions were going, and she answered honestly about not having proper access to everything that her team needs. And that is how we ended up in the committee today. But then the advocates really came across, to me it seemed like she was being made out to be somebody who exaggerated the situation. But just based on her body language, I could see that she was quite frustrated, because she is in a very tough position where she is under pressure because they are not able to properly prosecute because they don't have access, whereas the department is saying, no, but we've been in contact, we've been in touch with you guys all the time, we always have conversations, but that doesn't necessarily translate into the NPA getting exactly what they need. And at one stage, the NDPP actually I just saw her shaking her head, and she just backed off, and she said, look, yes, we are in conversations with them. Yeah,
no, I'm just saying it's all rather confusing, isn't it? So should I jump to the end and say, where did all this end in terms of this to and fro? Because central to all of that is the issue of justice, isn't it?
Where it ended, Ashraf, is that the media was blamed the media, we are to blame for this ending up in this committee. It was referred to as an unfortunate meeting, and that departments should not deal with the issues within the media space. They should deal with the issues internally. That was where it ended. The minister has, however, given her assurance, and the DG of the department also gave his assurance that they will work together with the NPA in terms of giving them unhindered access to the database. The term unhindered, however, also possibly means different things to the different entities.
It certainly does, yeah. Carry on.
Because what the NPA necessarily needs, the department might think, no, we're not going to give you all of that. That is just the picture that I saw today. So that the term of the scope the scope within which they are going to work, they're going to have to come up with a solution, and that's exactly what Jamila Batoyi said, was that she was just so grateful that this meeting was taking place today, because in spite of whether you want to blame the media or not, it cast a light on the issue, and it was finally getting the attention that her department needed it to get, because she had been writing to the department for years, complaining that they are not getting what they need, because it's such complex matters, of course, as well. They needed to be given complete access to everything in order for her prosecutors to adequately do their job. Ashraf?
And when you say blame the media, who was actually blaming the media?
The chairperson of the committee. He came out straight and he said, look, there were little suggestions in between, throughout the day, but the chairperson came out straight and said, going forward, let's not discuss our issues in the media. Let's not talk to each other via the media. Let's not communicate through the media. It was very damning the way he spoke about the media today. And I mean, all the journalists who were in the room, obviously we all, raised our eyebrows and were quite shocked. But yeah, that was the chairperson's take on how we ended up to being in the meeting today, Ashraf.
And interesting, and in terms of the Minister of Justice, considering her own issues, and that's a separate conversation, I know, but did that have any impact in terms of her own demeanor and performance in terms of her going about her duties today?
No. What I did notice was, and this is again my take on what I saw, I was in the committee last week when she was called to give account for the loan, the VBS loan issue. She was very defensive that day, and again today, like she said, my name is being dragged through the mud. She used those kinds of phrases, my leadership is being questioned. And I actually did go to her on the sidelines of the meeting, and I asked the minister, are you going to appear before the Integrity Commission? And she said, I don't know yet. And that was her response. I did try to get something out of her, but that was all that she would give me at that point.
Okay.
Ashraf?
Anything else that you'd like to share?
No, I think there was an issue around the licensing of the database, which was very, very technical. What the department said something about the reason why NPA prosecutors couldn't access certain documents was because these databases work with licenses, and because the license had expired, that is why the logins to access the information, that is where that glitch came into the system. But like I said, that was a very technical conversation which even the committee did not want to delve into too much, because I think it just went over too many people's heads. But it had to do with licensing issues, because these databases are owned by other entities, and then licenses, then the department would have to pay for the license in order to access that information. So that was just another sidebar issue around the whole debacle, Ashraf.
And I suppose maybe in conclusion, central to all of this is the fact that database found or database not found has an impact on South Africa's ability to mete out justice. It compromises justice.
If you think of it in terms of a chain of evidence, if you look at it as a physical library with all the information in that library, somebody goes in, accesses the information, takes it out, works on it, and then brings it back. So the integrity of that information is also called into question. How are they following up what gets done or where does the information get manipulated or tainted in any way. So it's a whole lot of issues to look at just in terms of the safety and the integrity of the information. And as we know, it's loads and loads of information that the NPA has to deal with.
Okay.
Ashraf?
Well, let's leave it to you to look into those loads and loads of information next time round. Appreciate you giving off your time, Abra Barbara. Thank you so much for that. The SABC News reporter covering that story, and it's a really, really important story around the NPA wanting access to the Zondo Commission database that allows them to continue with prosecutions, but a lot of that information has just gone missing, and that really is the central issue to all of this. What do you make of that? Probably take some calls if you have an opinion. 086 000 2032. You can also WhatsApp us with your voice notes 0614 104 107. Let me tell you again, just to repeat, the Joburg Country Club, I can look at it all. It's now more misty and less fire in terms of flames, but something has sparked it off, and we're not quite sure what it is, but it certainly is a large fire just behind the tennis courts, and then you get what I think would be the clubhouse. There's something behind it which could well be the site of the venue where they had an R&B Starlight event over the weekend. I certainly saw that with bright lights. What sparked off today, I don't quite know, but there's damage there. There's really big damage, and I hope all that will be put out shortly. We'll certainly keep you updated on that, and Badupi will do the same thing on the news as well. In the other big news, Bafana leading South Sudan by 2-1.
Samson Nigati have a secret plan to grab maximum points, but the Eagles refuse to travel back to West Africa empty-handed. The South confronts the West. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Witness the beauty of African football. Eswatini versus Mali on Tuesday, 10 September at 3 p.m. Live at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
Right, you can tune in to catch the rebirth of Mubango's new season on SABC2. Every Monday to Friday at 9 p.m. and experience the drama, the excitement with new intriguing characters like Dr. Nontlantla Kimba, played by Leleti Kumalo. And then the usual favorites you'll be familiar with, Azwindini, Rendani, Teboho, and of course Khosi. Now, it's a renaissance of new beginnings, love, secrets, and betrayal. Remember, every Monday to Friday, 9 p.m. on SABC2.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, let's get to one of the biggest stories of the last few days. Talk about drama and so many things. We've had it all here. We have with us today Tom London. You'll be very familiar with the name. People talk about him as a former broadcaster. I don't know if you can call him a former broadcaster. A former broadcaster is a broadcaster. He just broadcasts on different platforms, whether it was radio or content creation or podcast. But Tom, good chatting to you, and thank you for giving off your time.
It's so good to speak to you. Thank you.
Thank you. So first of all, what's your health like? How are you feeling, and where are you now?
Oh man, it's been a roller coaster ride. I'm currently at the Morningside Mediclinic. You know, this started with a simple chest cough. All my friends and colleagues had it. I then used over-the-counter medication for 8 or 9 days. Didn't work. Went to the GP, got some antibiotics. 5 days later, the antibiotics came to an end on the Saturday when I was home. I started feeling a bit bad in the morning, but worse in the afternoon. Didn't think too much about it. And by 10 o'clock that night, I couldn't breathe. And then I sat in my bed the whole night, not wanting to disturb anybody. That was a mistake. And waited for the sun to come up before I called for help. And then I was rushed to Helen Joseph Hospital, where I was diagnosed with a massive pleural effusion, which means there was about 1.5 liters of water that had built up in the lung cavity between my lung and my diaphragm. And they tapped us out. Obviously, the story that happened from there is the story of Helen Joseph, but clinically, I went into a ward, I got antibiotics. Eventually, I checked myself out of the hospital, and I checked myself out. They told me what I had, something called an empyema. In the car, I Googled that and realized that I was in real trouble. I better get to a hospital. I landed up here at Morningside Mediclinic, and there were 3 possible scenarios. One was that they were going to be able to give me antibiotics and clear this thing up with antibiotics and send me home. The second would be that they'd have to put a chest drain in and siphon this fluid out. And the worst case scenario would be that it had turned to a very thick pus, and they couldn't do that, and I'd have to have thoracic surgery where they open my chest up and scoop it all out and flush it and pull the leathery layers off my lung. It's a hell of an operation. And unfortunately, I got the worst case scenario. So I need a rather major, an extensive operation in the next week or so to rehabilitate my lung and my chest and give me a good chance at life. And I'm upright, I'm conscious, but the moment I move, it feels like the world's going to suck me in. And today I've been told that my blood count, red blood cell count, is very low because I had an intestinal bleed at Phil and Joseph, so I'm about to have a blood transfusion, and I've got a little bit of a fever. But otherwise, I feel happy and grateful to be alive.
I'm glad you are alive, and I certainly hope that you will thrive and endure and feel much, much better indeed as the days and the weeks move on. Right. Now, if you don't mind, I mean, normally we wouldn't speak to a hospital patient about other things outside their health, but I mean, you've done that already. You set the precedent. And maybe that's the part I want to talk about. I'm not going to go through what you've already posted because we've seen that already. Everybody has seen those posts. We've certainly shared it. We've spoken about it. What you've, that of course is the video coverage you've taken of your experience, both in terms of medical and the overall conditions, hygienic that is, at the Helen Joseph Hospital. What I'm very interested in terms of the what happened next. Right now, you've issued a statement to understand today, putting forward your position regarding a whole lot of different issues. One in terms of Helen Joseph Hospital, number two in terms of the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Gayton McKenzie, supporting you to move to another clinic, and then others suggesting that you could well be part of a political party. So I thought let's clear that up in terms of. Maybe first things first here, when you, and you know this as a broadcaster, when you pressed record and send, you knew that this is going to spark off a response, right? What were you thinking at that time, considering that you were ill, but you knew it was never going to be a silent thing?
Well, firstly, whatever I experienced in terms of the uncaring nature of the doctors in that hospital or the facilities or the flies, I saw other people in the hospital experience 10 times worse. You know, I'm a bit of a tough character, so if you try to give me attitude, I give attitude back. But a lot of people don't have the personality I've got, and I saw a lot of abuse taking place from the doctors specifically towards vulnerable people. Now, when I see other people getting abused, it sets off something in me. And that was the reason I made that video, not just about the abuse that I'd suffered or seen, but that it was so widespread that I felt I couldn't keep quiet about it. When I pressed send on that video, I had no idea how big the story was going to be. I knew that it would have some impact, and perhaps the relevant people would see it and perhaps question their own behavior, and that was my initial hope. That was it. I didn't think it would become a national story or part of the national conversation. I didn't think it would involve so many role players, and I had no idea politics would get involved.
But again, why would you have no idea? I'm saying you as a broadcaster who understands the media more than anybody else. Not that I need to question you about it. I'm just saying, for me, it would be a pretty obvious thing that was going to happen because it's one against the other in terms of the impact, right? Having said that, okay, what's your feelings now about what you've done?
I'm very happy that I've done it. There was a day or two in, I questioned myself. I thought, why have you brought all this heat upon yourself? Because all of a sudden I was being called a spy and a political agent. There was a lot of pushback against me. And I thought, gee whiz, did I do this unnecessarily? But, you know, the issue that I touched on is so important to our country. It goes beyond service delivery. It speaks to how we treat each other as South Africans. And when I made these videos, if you take a look underneath these videos, you'll see thousands upon thousands of comments from ordinary South Africans, from all race groups, from all walks of life, who have experienced abuse in our state institutions. And we don't speak about it. I didn't realize when I spoke about what I had seen that I was going to touch a national nerve, and that a lot of people were going to say, well, look, I've also experienced this, and it's time that we talk about it, and it's time that we do something about it. What I really didn't expect were people like the Dean of the Faculty of Medicine of Wits University to send out a circular to every alumni at Wits, every student, every worker at Wits, reminding them of the reason they're doctors, reminding them of the fact that they've taken an oath to care and be kind.
Absolutely.
I never expected people in that position to be so upfront and honest. I never expected SAMA to start examining the new generation of doctors that are coming out and why they're disconnecting. I never expected the unions to start speaking openly about the problems they've got. And so I thought that my voice and the controversy and the dust I kicked up would get people's attention, and enough attention that perhaps a few people would say, let me change my behavior. But I never thought so many people, and perhaps what I did opened the door for people to start talking honestly about the problems that they have. The doctors, the nurses, the universities, the professional bodies. There's an element of self-reflection that's taking place around this issue at the moment. An honest dialogue that I never expected to have.
Well, you're right. I read out the Prof. Shabir Mahdi statement yesterday, exactly as per what you've just suggested. They've looked at what they're doing and trying to hold themselves to account as well. The South African Medical Association Authority, I spoke to the chairperson there. He confirmed everything you said. He said, by and large, without being there, it's all true. And that gets me to the other point, because I put out a video based upon my conversation on air yesterday, was that how is it possible we can be world-class in rugby and yet our healthcare system, public healthcare, is in intensive care? And so you unwittingly have now put this in the spotlight, although, as you already agree and you know that, it's happening to thousands of people every single day. Everybody suffers from this type of situation, right? So here's the last thing to you, besides you hoping that you're going to get much better soon, right, Tom London? Do you see yourself in this unwitting new role as an activist, particularly around healthcare? Because I can't see yourself stepping back from the limelight on this issue.
It's very difficult for me to step back now. And the one thing I don't want to be known as is a troublemaker or somebody who divides people. And the difficulty here is it's very easy to think that I had a go at politicians. And I, in fact, never mentioned politicians once in my rants. I may have mentioned the NHI and my skepticism that if we can't get things right at the moment, how are we going to get the NHI right? But I'm not against the NHI in principle. I did not expect that politicians would have a very real go at me or try and use me as their proxy. And when that happened, I realized that there's a problem with politicians and politics in this country. The moment we bring up an issue as society and we say, hey, politicians, government, high-up government employees, we've got a problem here. There's a temptation to build a wall around themselves and fire shots from the parapet. And what I've done is I've asked the politicians in this country that when we have an issue like this, let's lay down our arms, let's sit down across the table and discuss the issue and find a solution. I'm not out to destroy politicians. I've got no political party that's my enemy. I'm not trying to have a go at politicians, but it just so happens that politicians who are in government are able to effect change.
Okay.
And so I think it's their responsibility to look at issues like this and not see it as an attack, but rather as an opportunity to sit down with society who have a very real problem with something and go, right, well, we have the ability to change something. And actually, it's not a war. Actually, we should be holding hands with our politicians.
Okay. Tom, I'm going to leave it there because maybe that's the best way to end it. We should be holding hands ultimately. Tom London, first of all, thanks for your time. Get well soon. You've raised an issue, and if you didn't know this before, you now know it. The transformative nature of the media and social media. It can be an incredibly powerful driver, ultimately for good, if the intention is just that. Thanks for your time, Tom London. Let's get the news headlines now, slightly delayed. Here's Majubi.
Thank you very much, Ashraf, and good afternoon. In your headlines, a building at the Country Club Johannesburg in Auckland Park is on fire. Emergency services are responding to the blaze that started this afternoon. Action SA has accused the Umgeni municipality in Howick, KZN, of withholding information on the extent of the sewage problem in the area. And Israeli diplomats have been instructed to lobby members of the U.S. Congress to pressure South Africa to drop its legal proceedings in the ICJ over the war in Gaza. A full news update with Greg at 5.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 northbound in Melrose has a crash near Athol Oaklands Road. Malibongwe Drive westbound in Sharon Lee has a crash near President Fashir Drive. Bayes Nodia Drive westbound in Fairland has a crash near the N1 highway. Paul Kruger Street northbound in Pretoria has a crash near Lavender Road, and the N1 southbound in Midrand has a lost load reported before Beklu interchange. In KZN, the N3 eastbound in Pietermaritzburg has roadworks reported. The right lane's closed between Market Road and the Gladys Nzansi Bridge for long-term roadworks. The M4 has roadworks reported with traffic restrictions at Tongaat Beach, so expect delays. And the N3 in Van Riemen's Pass has roadworks reported with traffic restrictions between the Pyramids Hotel and Van Riemen Village. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound is queuing towards Hospital Bend. The N1 Service Road outbound is slow moving towards the N7 highway. The N7 Jakes Hatfield Drive southbound queuing towards Voortrekker Road, and Baden-Powell Drive has sand on the carriageway between Strandfontein Road and Muizenberg, so proceed with caution. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
To me, I've got an eye on the football.
Yeah.
It's Bafana against South Sudan, and the South Sudanese, for the moment, are celebrating in the rain.
They're absolutely celebrating, and I'll tell you why. It's because right now the score is sitting at 2-2. Bafana went into halftime leading 2-1. All thanks to a brace by Ashwin Apollos. He scored in the 17th and the 47th minute. However, South Sudan pulled one back to make it 2-2 in the 57th minute. This is the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers between South Africa and South Sudan, and that match is 70 minutes in, and it's not the only match in terms of the AFCON qualifiers. Rwanda is currently playing Nigeria. That game 69 minutes in, and it's still sitting goalless, and Eswatini is playing Mali, with Mali leading 1-0, while Mozambique is currently leading 2-1 over Guinea-Bissau 78 minutes into their match. But we'll definitely keep you up to date with the action happening down at South Sudan. It's currently raining, however, as Ashraf did say, the fans are happy because of that 2-2 draw. Meanwhile, still staying with football, Royal AM will officially go into a second successive season without being able to register new players following the decision to delay their appeal to have the FIFA sanction withdrawn. Now, club owner Sean Mkize had written to the Switzerland-based tribunal seeking to have the verdict overturned, with their attorney adamant that the club will not be paying Samir Nurkovic the 12 million rand settlement, but the Court of Arbitration says that they will hear this matter on the 11th of October. Both Nurkovic and defender Ricardo Nishimanto are owed money by Royal AM and have been slapped with a transfer embargo until payment is done. Still talking about Royal AM, they have announced that Sinki Mnisi is back at the club after returning from his family responsibilities. But still staying with football, South Africa have a total of 12 stadiums approved for use in this season's African club competition, with Athlone, Atteridgeville and the Free State Stadium added to the previous list. South Africa has more stadiums for use in both the African Champions League and the African Confederation Cup than any other country. And Morocco has 10, Algeria 7, and Egypt and Ivory Coast have 6 each. Then moving on to rugby, Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus recalled hooker Johan Grobler to his 28-man squad for their short tour to Argentina, where they will face Los Pumas at the Santiago on the 21st of September in the penultimate Castle Lager Rugby Championship clash. Erasmus opted to rest 7 players who have had a heavy workload in the last few months, with an eye on the final round of the competition in Nelspruit against Argentina on the 28th of September. And just talking about those 7 players who are not traveling to Argentina, it's Bongim Bonambi, Frans Malherbe, Peter Steph du Toit, Sasha Feinberg Mgome Zulu, Damian Delandi, Cheslin Colby and Willie Leroux. Then the World Anti-Doping Agency has renewed its call for the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency agency to better protect clean sport in the United States. This is amid what it says are growing concerns about athletes attending major events without being sufficiently tested. Now, according to a Garda letter yesterday, 90% of all athletes in the United States compete outside the protection of the anti-doping code. And Garda said that it received a letter in July on behalf of 32 national and regional anti-doping organizations from Europe, Asia and Africa who appear concerned that the US are sending athletes to major events like the Olympics and World Championships without being sufficiently tested in advance, which is very strange. However, they are dealing with that matter, and that's it from my side. I'll have more on other sports in the next hour.
So just a quick one on this game. I mean, I hope it doesn't stay that way. I hope we win. But
yeah,
if we draw?
If we draw, it's not a good thing for us because currently Uganda are leading the group. Congo is second. We'll just have 2 points from the first 2 games, which is not great for our qualification process.
Well, I hope they get the message.
Hopefully this rain does not disturb them.
Well, and just by the way, I have to say this. What do you make of Gayton McKenzie's comments about, I mean, what has he actually said to Safa and to Danny Jordan?
So he says he's told Danny Jordan that Bafana needs to qualify for the Africa Cup of Nations and they need to qualify for the World Cup. And for him, he feels like he can't just support a federation with them not bringing in results. But he says he doesn't have that much confidence in the South African Football Association because of the results specifically.
Well, I mean, the truth is that's the truth, but the reality of the past. But there is a fine line, isn't it, between saying we're going to support you, we want the best for Bafana, we expect the best, we want you to be as good as the Springboks, for example. I think that's fine. But there's a difference between that and making an ultimatum. Do you get a sense that he's given him an ultimatum? Because if he does, then there is a sense of political interference which FIFA really would not be happy with. They actually kick countries out of
political
tournaments because
interference.
of that.
How though?
Well,
I feel like Safa does need that hard.
But I don't think the Minister of Sport can't appoint the President of Safa.
Of course, yeah.
He can't, and if he's influencing that appointment, that would be political interference.
Do you think he's influencing it? He's just saying, guys, come on, pull up your socks.
Or
he's not saying.
And he's saying to Danny Jordan.
Yeah.
Or else.
I guess.
That's influence. I think it is. Okay, we'll talk about it in an hour's time.
EFC is live this Thursday. The bantamweight title is on the line, live from the World Sports Betting Arena as the top-ranked divisional contenders and perennial fan favorites Faiz Jacobs and Vince Bembe go to war.
Oh, big right from Faiz Jacobs. The finish is over. What a win.
When he smells blood, he hunts mercilessly for the finish.
EFC is live this Thursday. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
When self-made billionaire Wilton Knight rescues police detective Lieutenant Michael Long after a near-fatal shot to the face, he gives him a new identity and a new name, Michael Knight. Paired with the unique Knight Industries 2000 aka kit, they are brought in during situations where direct action might provide the only feasible solution. Kusazo Shuba and Michael Knight and Kit are ready to rise to the occasion. Channel your best retro with Knight Rider, weekdays at 12 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Certainly, let's get to the numbers with Makwe Masilela, the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Right, you've got some thoughts on what Lipstar interims as well as the usual daily, local and global markets, right?
Yes, Ashraf. And Lipstar, these are the Danny Mushroom guys. Revenue growth of 5.2% driven by strong performance of the Ambit product, selling price inflation and mix changes. But the sales volumes declined marginally by 0.2%, but volumes in the industrial and export channels increased. Ashraf load sharing cost reduced by 71% to 13 million rands, but offset by a 14 million rand increase when it comes to electricity costs. Profit as headline earnings per share up 32%. And And markets head into a crunch time with key U.S. inflation data tomorrow, followed by ECB interest rate decision on Thursday, then the U.S. decision next Wednesday, with our decision the following day. And the market mood is cautious as investors look to balance the U.S. recession fears and the likelihood of a soft landing amid worries that the Fed may be falling behind the curve as the labor market cools. Meanwhile, U.S. political risk is back at the forefront. Presidential candidates are squaring up in a debate tonight. And after falling 5.5% in June, our July manufacturing increased by 1.7%, better than the 0.7% increase expected. And a weaker demand outlook offset U.S. supply disruptions from Tropical Storm Francine. Brent crude dropped to below $70 for the first time since December 2021. It's down 2.8% now at $69 a barrel. And gold holding firm above 2,500 levels as U.S. inflation data looms. And we can see that global markets are falling with the GSE being flat, dragged down by our resources, which are down almost 2%. The rand weakened almost 0.5% against the US dollar, is now 17.94, 23.41 to the pound, and 19.76 to the euro.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And we will certainly chat again sometime tomorrow, but more updates on the market coming up in about 50 minutes or so. Now, this is for you. I certainly don't need to do it, but if you want to do it, it's up to you. The Powerball jackpot can't be missed this Tuesday with a huge 100 million rand estimated jackpot. So don't get left behind. Be in it to win it by playing Powerball for an estimated 100 million rand jackpot. Buy your tickets now in store or the nationallottery.co.za, that's the website. Then the mobile app, cell phone banking, or you can dial star 120 star 7529 hash for USSD. Panda, push up, play. Players must be 18 years or older. Play responsibly. The Tuba is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
So, by the way, regarding the fire in the Johannesburg Country Club, I mean, there's still lots of smoke. I understand that certainly emergency services at the scene now, as I would expect them to be, and we will actually talk to them as well after 5 o'clock. But it seems like there's less fire, but it's by no means out, which means there must be some severe damage. And, you know, my understanding is that Joburg Country Club, the buildings there are historic buildings. So I pray that we have not had people injured and we've had no loss of life. I pray that's the case. But there's definitely damage, and we've posted videos. I've certainly posted videos on. Check it out on my Twitter or X platform. You'll see it. Just Ashraf Garda. You'll find 3-4 videos that we've taken from our view, and we have this vantage point on the 6th floor of the SABC buildings here at SAFM. Right, calls. Benny in Pretoria. Hi.
How are you?
Hi, Benny. How are you?
Yeah, you know, this doctor that you called, I think it's a former Feet Must Fall or whatever activist. You know, these people, they come and talk nonsense on radio. He actually graduated from all these junior degrees until doing what we call it law, that is a universal law. And then why didn't he go to Africa and find a university that is decolonized, that is teaching African? Because Africans don't have books, they don't have any literature that they can start the law. It was only jungle law.
Well, I don't know. I mean, look, I tell you what, we can go into a whole history debate about who did this and who started this and what is a university and what is a college, and we can speak for 2 hours. But the point I hear what you're making is it's an interesting one. But he himself, as you're growing up, initially when you're a young person, where else can you go? It's one of the purposes of a university is to teach you to think critically. And if that has taught him to think critically about the type of education, then shouldn't he then be implementing and moving for change? Because the world is nothing if it doesn't make changes.
Yeah, but all these years, these African professors of literature, languages, and that, they couldn't even write books to tell us the real story. They graduated, the professors, these African Bantu professors.
All right, I got that. So
they come from universities, and they come and speak nonsense.
Okay, Benny, you
they stay in the USA.
All right, Benny, you've made your point. I mean, and you're obviously calling that guest that we had in the thought leader conversation offside, which is exactly really the purpose of what we do. It's a thought leader conversation. We're referring to Dr. Intando Sindani. Right, that's it. Let's get to some of the voice notes now, and let's see which ones I can play. Let's just see if I can connect it. By the way, we will do other things. Right, let me just get to the voice notes now. So there's a range of issues, and here's one about Tom London.
Ashraf, that Mr. London who exposed actually the state of the hospital, he mustn't lie to us that he did not expect that the situation will have exploded like it did. He knows very well, like you rightfully saying, Ashraf, that he's been working as a journalist, as a radio presenter. He knew that it's gonna explode, and politically, and also his intention was to expose the government, the health department. You see, thanks, Willie Nkuma.
Well, look, I think to be fair, he did say that he was hoping that his expose will reach some important ears. So I don't think he ever denied that. What he did say beyond that was he didn't realize it'll make as big an impact. So he didn't say, I didn't think it'll make any impact. He just thinks I didn't realize it'll make as big an impact as it clearly has, right? Here's another comment on Helen Joseph.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Regarding Helen Joseph, I want to say that I was also a patient there. I went there complaining with abdominal pain, so apparently my appendix was about to burst. So I didn't know then, so I sat in casualty for like 2 days or so. 2 days in casualty and sitting on a chair. I'm talking about morning till nighttime, just sitting there on a chair. And they just kept saying, no, they have no beds. Until I think on the third day, that's when I called my sister, I'm like, no, sister, I'd rather be transferred to another hospital. And we had to go to Para, where I got treated there. And lucky enough, my appendix didn't burst by then. But yeah, Helen Joseph, I had a bad history with them.
Okay, there are many others who actually find that they're quite happy with and they're not thrilled, but they're much happier. They've had better experiences, let's just put it that way.
Afternoon, Ashraf. It's Mekin Taban. Ashraf, there's a lot of hullabaloo being made about Steenhuisen appointing matriculants into senior positions. Look, Steenhuisen himself is a matriculant. So I see no reason why he wouldn't appoint other matriculants, because he's a matriculant himself. The question should be that in the Democratic Alliance, the best they could come up with was a matriculant to take a position of being Minister of Agriculture in this case. Is it the best they have in the DA? Nothing better than a matriculant? That's a question.
Okay, well, I think it's more complicated than that. I think it's more about not about the qualification, but about the closeness of the hire, and that's been something, let's call it cadre deployment. That's been something the DA has been critical of in the past, and now they may well be accused of doing the same thing. So you see, I'm not talking about the qualifications. I'm talking, the ability is not the question here. It's about just that. We're talking about ability and making changes. I'm pretty sure you've checked out the Checkers 60/60 app, right? So as part of our case study in terms of businesses, we'll talk about that next.
The breakers of the barriers have demonstrated that bravery, courage, and excellence often exceed any boundaries and limits. This exhilarating moment is the 19th edition to celebrate and honor the tangible impact of women in sport. Experience the Momentum G Sport Awards 2024 on Thursday, 12 September at 6:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and reports on SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Welcome to the team, Andile.
Thank you.
What will be your first order of business?
Well, ensuring our greatest assets are taken care of.
Our vehicle fleet?
No,
our employees. You see, I want them to feel confident in our company's employee benefits, and Old Mutual Corporate is perfect for that. They take care of everything, from retirement benefits to health and group risk solutions, consulting, and more.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
Weeknights on S3 are anything but ordinary. BBC Primetime brings you the best of British television from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Open your mind to Life on Death Row, Thursdays at 9 p.m. and Resistance in a Hostile Environment, a 3-part documentary showcasing turning points which would go on to define race relations in the UK for a generation. Thursdays at 10 p.m. Wind down your weeknights with The Outlaws, Fridays at 9 p.m. and explore the world's most dangerous roads at 10 p.m. Channel your best entertainment with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
So one of the things that we want to place huge emphasis on is the issue of business strategy, because it's one thing saying get involved in a startup, grow your own business, become an entrepreneur, but the question is how do you do so? So at least once a week around this time we will focus on that, just some of the key strategic decisions people make in business and how that impacts on the business and the bottom line. So here's an interesting one. We all know about the Checkers 6060 app. It's the biggest on-demand grocery delivery service in the country. Absolutely. And the Checkers results were produced the other day, and ShopRite and again, many say, excuse me, that contributed, the app that is, has contributed big time because it's changed shopping habits and has given them an advantage. Now, the service itself was built by Zulzi, Z-U-L-Z-I, okay? And they built the initial platform. They still maintain it. And we thought let's find out about how they went about doing so and perhaps what we can learn from that from a business strategy. My guest is Vutlari Donald Valoyi, who's with me, the founder of Zulzi. Appreciate your time. You're now live on the National Pulse.
Yeah, good afternoon, Ashraf, and all the listeners out there.
Thank you.
So much for giving me time.
Well, we're glad you're talking to us. Take us back then to when that platform for Checkers 6060 or Checkers was built, right? What was the brief that you had come up with, and were you that confident that it'll be as effective as it clearly has been?
Yeah, look, let's start here. I think I've been in the e-commerce space since 2012, right? So Zuzi started in 2012 as an e-commerce business where we used to sell books, electronics to students. And then 2016, we then moved to become an aggregator where we introduced 1 hour delivery into the country, where we used to pick all the items from different retailers like Woolworth, Pick and Pay, Click, and then it was at that time that the likes of Checkers then approached us to say, you know what, can you come and help us to build the 6060 platform? And then we did that then. But what's important here is to actually understand that it didn't come just overnight, right? It's things that we've been building for some time for our own. And then the Zuzi platform as well evolved itself as well. So currently what we do as Zuzi, we've got our own dark stores where we deliver groceries here in Joburg and pharmaceutical products. So if you want to buy your medication using medical aid, you are able to do that online, and we're the first guys to actually introduce that in South Africa. The same thing we did by introducing 1 hour delivery back then. We're now back with your prescription medication that you can actually order on the app and get it delivered, whether if you're paying using medical aid. So those are the type of things that we continuously look at doing as Zuzi, as a startup, young startup. So I think from our side, I think we are always excited and looking forward to contribute positively into the e-commerce space in South Africa.
Okay, so we're speaking at 2 levels here. On the one hand, you built your own platform, which was reasonably successful, and that's obviously caught the attention of Checkers for their 6060 app. Their app, you must admit, and it's a feather in your cap that it's grown so big. It's number one in the country, so it's probably even dwarfed your own ambitions around being this one-stop e-commerce shop for yourself.
Yeah, look, I think let me say that was a blessing in disguise as well for us, right? So I think obviously getting an opportunity like that to work with one of the biggest retailers, I think that has been a privilege, and I think that partnership has been very, very successful. for ourselves as well, including Checkers as well. So I think that is an example of how a small business can really partner with big players and really make it big, right? So I think, let me say, that has been very good for us. And I think we continue to support the group as well going forward.
So now, so you support Checkers, but then you still have your own parallel business. How successful has that been?
Yeah, so our own business, as I said, we operate our own retail stores now. So we've got about 7 warehouses or dark stores where we pick groceries from. So here in Joburg North, a lot of people order groceries using Zuzi and including liquor, pharmaceuticals as well. So that's how successful we've been here in Joburg, and then we're looking to expand obviously nationwide. So before end of this year, we should be in Cape Town and Durban as well. So I think, let me say, for Zuzi, I think we've been the pioneers in terms of the next models. So if you look at the dark stores now, we started about 2 years ago to roll out dark stores, and you'll see a lot of other retailers now talking about dark stores. So we sort of I'll say we're kind of like the pioneers in terms of how e-commerce is run, right? So
well, I'm glad that you say that, because my next question would be, as we get to news time, is besides people using you and going to Checkers, is we're talking on the business strategy feature here. So what advice can you give all of us who do understand, but we don't quite know how, that the bigger market now is using digital online e-commerce? We just don't quite know how to crack it. What would you suggest?
Yeah, I think what's interesting is if you look at the digital landscape, right, it's very well connected, right? So there are no boundaries when it comes to the digital landscape. So a lot of people make a mistake of just looking at the local players only without looking at international players. And what we are seeing here in the e-commerce space as well, we're seeing a lot of international players coming into our space, right? So what I would advise anyone, whether if you're a retailer or you're a startup, you have to understand that the e-commerce space or the digital space, it's very connected, right? So a player that is in the US or the UK can come here, or China, anytime. So what's more important here is for people to really look at what is the global landscape, where are things shifting to, right? So if you look at the trends currently, things like AI, those are the things that you have to make sure that they are coming first in your business. It can't come second, So those type of things I think are very, very important, to look at the international trends and make sure that we are following it as a business. So you can't wait for those things to come to us. You have to be the one who's leading by making sure that we're implementing those things in your business.
And quickly, just give me a soundbite answer. We're on to news time. Are you suggesting that it is possible for every one of us to break down the barriers because of digital transformation, to be able to start and grow our online e-commerce businesses really huge? Can we do that?
Definitely. I think, if I were to give you a history for Zoos, obviously we don't have enough time, but, we started in Braamfontein, right? And we built this platform ground up, and that's how we got an opportunity to sort of work with these blue chip companies, right? So it's possible for anyone to actually build this, because I think tech does not require too much capital from the beginning. So you can start with nothing and you can really build it up to the top, right?
Okay.
So it's possible. It's possible.
Fascinating. I tell you what, feel free to tweet out some of your thoughts, and you can tag SAFM Radio and myself, Ashraf Garda, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. I certainly want to share it and talk to more people about it. It is that important, understanding the new way of business strategy. So there we are, talking to Vutlari Donald Valoy, the founder of Zulzi, the grocery app. They do it for themselves as a dark store, and that's all. Google that, but also delivering for the Checkers 6060 platform. Let's get the news now. It's just gone 5 o'clock. Here's Madupi.
Thank you. Ashraf Madupi's left the building. I'm Greg Host with the news at 5 o'clock. And in this news update, Auckland Park Country Club on fire and lobbying over SA's ICJ case. Good day to you. A building at the Country Club Johannesburg in Auckland Park is on fire. Emergency services say teams are on the scene to determine the extent of the damage caused by the blaze. Motorists and residents have been advised to avoid the area and keep routes open for emergency services. Hasina Gori reports.
The fire seems to have broken out outside the Auckland Park Country Club here in Johannesburg. It seems to have emanated from the restaurant. At this stage, emergency services as well as the fire engines have arrived at the scene.
Meanwhile, emergency services spokesperson Robert Malawutsi says the cause of the blaze is unknown at this stage.
Yes, we can confirm that City of Johannesburg Emergency Management Services firefighters are currently attending to a building on fire incident reported in Auckland Park. At this stage, we don't have any injuries which have been reported, and also the cause of the fire is still a subject of investigations. More details about the incidents to follow later on.
Action SA has accused the Mgeni municipality in KwaZulu-Natal of withholding information on the extent of the sewage problem in the area. The municipality's sewage works as one of the main sources of pollution. Water quality tests have found that the Mgeni River in Durban has sewage pollution at levels thousands of times above the amount allowed. The municipality says this is because of overflows from sewers that residents have blocked due to dumping foreign objects down the drains. Action SA's Athol Trollop.
In Action SA are saying we want an investigation by the Department of Water and the Department of Environmental Affairs to find out what the source of this pollution is and what can be done to fix it. Now, it is the responsibility of the municipality and the district municipality if indeed raw sewage is being discharged into the watercourses, because this compromises people's health and also the environment. So we want a speedy resolution to this problem.
Mgeni Municipal Mayor Christopher Papa says the management of water and sanitation is outside their scope. He's accused Athol Trollop of spreading misinformation.
I understand that there are several by-elections being contested in eThekwini this week, and political parties are vying for support in these wards. At the Mgeni municipality, we welcome robust political competition, but we strongly caution against spreading misinformation in a bid to gain votes. We cannot condone factually incorrect, attention-seeking tactics that erode the trust of citizens that they have in government.
The SA Depression and Anxiety Group says they receive over 3,000 calls a day from individuals struggling with mental health issues. This is World Suicide Prevention Day is being observed today. Group spokesperson Keir Cordero.
If you call in, depending on if you're in distress, if you're just looking for information, if you are worried about a loved one, they'll provide you with guidance and resources and support in where you can go to find help, what you can do to help your loved one, how you can help yourself, who you can see, and what support there is out there.
Israeli diplomats have been instructed to lobby members of the U.S. Congress to pressure South Africa to drop its legal proceedings in the International Court of Justice over the war in Gaza. The development, first reported by a news website, says South Africa has until the 28th of next month to present its arguments to the International Court. A delegation headed by the International Relations Minister Ronald Lamola is currently en route to the U.S. Sharon Bryce Peace reports.
The Axios report says Israel hopes the new coalition government in South Africa would take a different approach to it and the war in Gaza after Israel rejected its actions amounted to genocide. The ICJ has issued several provisional orders on Israel's conduct, including on urgently needed humanitarian assistance in Gaza, and that it refrains from actions that violate the rights of Palestinians as a group. The Israeli Foreign Ministry reportedly sent a classified cable to the Israeli embassy in Washington and all its consulates in the U.S., urging them to pressure South Africa that continuing its case could come at a heavy price, including efforts towards suspending trade relations. The cable urged Israeli missions to work with lawmakers on the federal and state level to put pressure on South Africa to change its policy towards Israel.
Top stories that are building at the country club Johannesburg in Auckland Park is on fire. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khos.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Bafana beat South Sudan in the dying minutes of the game to claim their first win of Group K in the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations. And the F1 design great Newey joins Aston Martin. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg queuing towards Crown Interchange. Houghton Drive southbound in Parktown has delays towards St. Patrick Road. Sandton Drive westbound is slow moving towards Winnie Mandela Drive. Olifantsfontein Road in Clayville has delays on the ramp to the R21 south. In Pretoria, Mabopane Highway northbound queuing towards Theo Martins. Paul Kruger Street northbound is queuing towards Lavender Road, and Dalmas Road southbound slow moving at Nossob Street. In KZN, the N3 westbound in Ashburton has a stationary track at Linfield Park. Truck congestion also reported in Bayhead and Mbulu area, so you're asked to expect delays. In Cape Town, the N2 outbound has a stationary vehicle after Browning Road. The M5 southbound is slow moving towards Racecourse Road. The N7 Jakes Hadwell Drive southbound is queuing towards Voortrekker Road, and the N1 outbound slow moving towards Okavango Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This September, S3 brings you thought-provoking nature dockies that will change the way in which you view the world. Prince William embarks on a global mission to ensure our world is left in a better place for future generations, championing action for the natural world and showcasing pioneering local heroes. Prince William, A Planet for Us All, airs Sunday the 15th of September. Channel your inner activist with our selection of premium dockies Sundays at 5 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
The future of education is here. Impact offers 2 paths to the future. Design your own homeschooling journey with Impact Homeschooling, or let our experienced teachers guide the way with the Impact Online School. Get quality future-forward education. Visit www.impact.co.za today to register for 2025.
We've upgraded. Our new GIS-linked national address database lets us connect with you better than ever before. By visualizing licensed and unlicensed households nationwide, we can ensure timely communication. Our payment reminders are a crucial tool to help you stay compliant and avoid penalties, empowering you to take proactive steps. Efficient electronic communication helps us collect fees seamlessly, bolstering the SABC's mandate in line with Section 27 of the Broadcasting Act. TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So again, from my vantage point on the 6th floor of the SABC buildings where SAFM broadcasts from, I still have the view of that fire, the Joburg Country Club just below us, right? And there's still lots of smoke. I don't see much fire, but there's lots of smoke, right? So it's certainly not put out at all. And I understand emergency services clearly would be there. We'd speak to them shortly. And we're not quite sure because it's part of the, beyond the tennis courts, part of the potential clubhouse, and then you've got a golf course there. And they're all linked, of course, right? So we'll find out exactly what happened and the extent of the damage shortly. But as I talk to you now, there's still lots of smoke, and you know the story. Where there's smoke, there's fire, right? So let's get on to other issues where some may say there's smoke and there's fire. The Western Cape Department of Education revealed that they'll be cutting, well, the number is 2,407 teaching posts after National Treasury cut the province's budget by 3.8 billion rands. Now, this has caused an uproar, not only in the education sector, but many organizations and civil society too. What exactly then is the position of the Western Cape Department of Education? What do they intend doing about the criticism? Is there another way to do this? With me is Brona Hammond, who is the Western Cape Department spokesperson. Appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, good afternoon, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Thanks for your time. Right, now let me do this. Initially, we spoke earlier on to Sibongile Kwazi, who's the SATU Western Cape Provincial Secretary, and she gave these thoughts about the impact of possible retrenchments because of the well over 2,000 teachers being axed, and this is what she said.
The employer is indicating that they are not retrenching teachers. And technically, they may be true because there is no retrenchment tool in the public service. But the reality is that they are laying off many contract teachers who have been in the system for the whole of 2024 and even for 3 years. In the education system, we have a collective agreement that was concluded by all trade unions who are party to the Education Labour Relations Council, where we agreed that all educators who are 3 months in a vacant post and are qualified for that post, then their status should be changed from temporary to permanent. Why that is important at this stage is that since there is no retrenchment tool in the public service, the jobs would be safe for those temporary educators if their status was changed to permanent. So our fight at this stage is on the dispute that we have lodged with the Education Labour Relations Council based on non-compliance with the collective agreement 4 of 2018 regarding the conversion.
Okay, that's the views of the spokesperson for SADTU Western Cape, Sibongile Kwazi. Bronak, just as a starting point, I mean, just your response to what you've just heard.
Line is busy. Can you please, is a bit fuzzy. Could you please repeat?
I was saying as a starting point, if you heard Sibongile's comments, just anything you'd like to just comment on the back of what she said?
I couldn't really catch a lot of what she said. The line wasn't great at all, but
Okay.
I did catch some things. What I can say outright is that there isn't any retrenchment or no one's getting fired. You know, we've been very, very clear about that, and we put our cards on the table about that and made it, you know, very clear. What we are doing is we have indicated to schools what their teaching post-allocation is for next year, their educator basket for next year. And if there are excess teachers, they would need to identify excess teachers. Those permanently employed will then be transferred to other schools where it meets their school sets. And in other cases, if there's contract teachers whose contracts will expire on the 31st of December, those contracts won't be renewed. But it is dependent on how many teachers are declared in excess. And again, also, you know, we have a natural attrition rate of 2,100 educators across the system every year due to retirement, for example, death, and resignation. So there are vacancies in schools which will be filled by those teachers immediately if those schools are transferable. So I think, you know, we need to consider what is actually at every school, what are the needs of those schools in terms of such choices in schools, and, you know, there's just no retrenchment or firings taking place.
Okay, so help us understand this. When you say there's no retrenchments, in fact, even Sibongile Kwazi made the same comment because she referred to the end of contracts. So who then is being let go?
Sorry, Ashraf, this line
Is the line not
terrible.
Let me repeat.
No, it's terrible.
Can you hear this? I was saying, who then is being let go? No. Okay, I'll tell you what. We need to. We'll hopefully reconnect with Bronak Hammond because she certainly can't hear me at this point in time. Let's do this in the meantime. Let's pick up some of the comments we've had, and here's another one on teachers.
Hi Ashraf, Thomas from Randburg here. I'm a high school teacher. I've worked in state schools and private schools. And I can tell you that the ideal number of kids in a classroom is between 15 to 25. Any more than 25, it gets difficult to interact with them, all of them in one lesson, because that's the whole point, is you need to be able to talk to every single child in one lesson. I would say 22 would probably be my about favorite.
Okay, well, that's the number. We asked about, you know, how much is too much or too little, and certainly that call is saying 22, and we know South Africa is well above that, right? Okay, Bronak Hammond, the spokesperson for Western Cape Education. Hopefully you can hear me now, right?
Oh, yes, so much better.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank goodness for that. Right. Okay, so just to give us clarity then, maybe just, and I'll say these are technical terms, so nobody's being retrenched who's fully employed, but there are people who are being let go, right? That means what is the nature of their contract or relationship with the Western Cape Education Department?
Well, those contracts you get it whenever you get employed in contract. It's only for a fixed term, and there's an end date to that term. And in many cases, sometimes those contracts are not renewed, and in some cases they are renewed. If the school needs it and it fits into their establishment. So in these cases, it depends on how many teachers are vacancies there are at the school in terms of natural attrition, and those skill sets can be used in those vacancies. And then, of course, there will be teachers who will be over and above the establishment of this. There aren't vacancies, for example, and those teachers will then be required to there will be an excess, what we call an excess, and we will transfer them to another school. But we are not, those permanent teachers are not being fired or retrenched at all.
Okay.
We are aware of the dispute statute, and in terms of the argument, I've picked up a bit on what was said about the collective agreement, and that will be discussed in the ERRC and dealt with in there.
Okay. Overall, what is the dispute from a SATU point that you understand or don't?
There are two elements. They said that we didn't consult properly, and then in terms of the collective agreement. But we are, I don't want to go into the details. That is something that our legal team will take up with them, and it's the ERRC. But we did have a process of consultation at the end of July and in August. But at the end of the day, we put all our cards on the table, and we've been in discussions with the unions for months and months. Actually, and last year we began this discussion when we saw the wage agreement. We knew we had an issue and a problem, and that is why we actually approached the unions and actually said, look, we're going to be cutting here and there, including head office. We've got a 21% vacancy rate at head office. We're all doing other people's jobs because we're trying to save costs there. We cut on our Back on Track program. We've cut on our infrastructure program, and we tried to then also get the unions to support us in terms of converting contract posts to permanent posts, because that is the savings for the department as well. And we managed to convert 5,000 posts, so we did manage to get some savings there. But quite frankly, the bill is just too high for us at the moment.
And I take it that it's been sparked off by that 3.8 billion rand budget cut, right?
No, what had happened was that there was a wage agreement done at national level. It wasn't done at provincial level. That is the collective agreement for public servants. And the National Treasury admittedly said they couldn't afford the costs of the wage agreement and only gave us actually 64%. So 36% we had to fund ourselves. So we immediately went on a cost-saving initiative, and we managed to save 2.5 billion, which is really a big percentage of our budget. But the 3.8 billion is still outstanding. We just don't have that money, and that's where the issue lies.
Right. Here's a question: the fact that these teachers whose contracts will not be extended, right, as opposed to being retrenched, what impact will that have on the teaching environment?
Well, it depends on how many contracts will not be extended, because it depends on the vacancy rates at schools. There could be many teachers that contracts are extended beyond the 31st of December. There's no guarantee that your contract will be extended when you enter into a contract, first of all. But second of all, obviously we want to have stability in the system as much as possible. And we are sympathetic and empathetic towards our teachers, all of them. We do not want to be placed in this position. This was a very difficult choice, but as I said, we've cut elsewhere. Right now, those teachers will be, we will have other employment opportunities for them. But I don't think the percentage will be as high as other people think, because of the vacancy rates in schools as well as the natural attrition rates.
Okay. For now, let's leave it at that, Bronak. Hammond, the Western Cape Department of Education spokesperson. Thank you for your time, much appreciated. By the way, you, maybe from the Western Cape yourself, as a teacher, as a learner, as a parent, what do you make of the possibilities of almost 2,500 teachers in some or the other losing their positions as teachers. If not retrenched, then certainly they're not having their contracts extended. Either way, it means they will not be where they should be in the classroom.
The breakers of the barriers have demonstrated that bravery, courage and excellence often exceed any boundaries and limits. This exhilarating moment is the 19th edition to celebrate and honor the tangible impact of women in sport. Experience the Momentum G Sport Awards 2024 on Thursday, 12 September at 6:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and reports on SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Weeknights on S3 are anything but ordinary. BBC Primetime brings you the best of British television from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Open your mind to Life on Death Row, Thursdays at 9 p.m. and Resistance in a Hostile Environment, a 3-part documentary showcasing turning points which would go on to define race relations in the UK for a generation. Thursdays at 10 p.m. Wind down your weeknights with The Outlaws, Fridays at 9 p.m. and explore the world's most dangerous roads at 10 p.m. Channel your best entertainment with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
This Heritage Month, SAFM invites you to celebrate the rich tapestry of our nation's diverse cultures. From the vibrant beats of our traditional music to the flavors of our unique cuisines, every culture tells a story of strength, unity, and identity. We honor the heroes and heroines who laid down their lives for our freedom, reminding us that our shared heritage is what makes us strong. Together as one, we celebrate who we are because our culture is our identity. This Heritage Month, let's celebrate every culture, every story, and every voice. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Okay, of course, different strokes. If you're this way inclined, you better make a note of this one. In Mzansi, the Powerball jackpot cannot be missed this Tuesday. That's tonight, right? With a huge 100 million rand estimated jackpot. Okay, so you can buy your tickets now in store on the nationallottery.coza, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply you can dial star 120 star 7529 hash for USSD. Panda push-up play. Players must be 18 years or older. Play responsibly. Ituba is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation.
Right, we said we'll join up with the emergency services shortly. I think it's going to be a slight delay. They're probably just occupied for the moment. As soon as we can, we will cross to them regarding that fire at the Johannesburg Country Club, very close to where we are here at the SABC HQ in Auckland Park in Johannesburg. Here's a comment about the unions.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. The unions are also members of the Tripartite Alliance. Why can't they talk to the ANC minister like they normally do, that they are not consulted? Why can't they talk to the national minister during their meetings with the ANC? And always stop blaming the DA, because they are anti-DA. Everything that the DA is doing is wrong. I don't know what these kind of people are. They always like to blame other people. Thank you, Anonymous from Soweto.
Okay, Anonymous, and here's another comment about also about the unions.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ashraf. Mr. Ashraf, you know the reason why I hate unions. They like to play with people. Those teachers, when they were employed, they knew very well that this was temporal. It was not a permanent appointment. So now why they are acting as if, let's say, Western Cape government is doing something out of the blue? What was the agreement when they were employed? getting employed by the department. Didn't they know that the positions that they are getting are not permanent? Now they are playing with people's emotions, if like they are being victimized. Thank you. Bongo Sundisa.
Okay, well, there's somebody who hates the unions. Here's another comment on something we touched on earlier, foreign policy.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and SAFM listeners. You know, there are two nations that have destroyed the African continent, and that is Britain and France. Yes, let's not blame them solely, but they are still in power and colonizing this continent through the puppets that they've installed on this continent. Now, coming to the issue of Tanzania, you know, a friend of mine once said that Britain's former colonies follow a trend, and if you want to know what that trend is, look at which political parties in Britain. There's always a change in foreign policy. Thanks, Lionel Woodbank.
Okay, interesting thoughts from you, Lionel. And here's another comment on Israel.
Hi, Ashraf. Good afternoon. How are you, Mafuta? Yeah, Ashraf. Here we are again. The Israeli government pairing with the U.S. government are trying to bully the SA government in dropping the charges against Israel on the ICJ. I think the solution is that those in the anti-war war campaign should also group together and pressure the world against these two countries. I think there's no one at all who can accept the suffering of the Palestinian people, which we had seen for years, and the blatant ignorance of human rights, which we witnessed for all along, for economic reasons or for economic sanctions. I think that's not acceptable, Ashraf.
Okay, well, I mean, yeah, you know, I've certainly chatted about this, and I've said the root cause of the problem in the Middle East between the Israelis and the Palestinians, really, you have to go back to 1917. Everything else emanates from that. I don't know how often I've said that. Beyond that, there's lots of tits for tat across the board. You can argue for one against the other, this one too hard, this one too soft, but the real root cause, if you don't eliminate the root cause, and you will not be in a position of having justice and peace. You can't have peace without justice. You just can't do that. So I hear what you're saying. We'll follow up on that story, whether that's actually true about this new form of influencing American politics in terms of their business with South Africa. Don't quite know. Let's see how it works out today, tomorrow, and if so, we will certainly talk about it. Janus in Cape Town, go ahead. Hello.
Hi, Ashraf. You mentioned about the 70s, Israel and Palestinians, but we should go to even 49 when Israel was established, and the borders were not actually visible and not adjusted to the.
No, 1917 is before 49, Janus.
Yes, 17. Oh, yeah, okay.
1917,
right, yes, okay.
17, yeah.
Yes, okay. But now, Ashraf, I would like to ask you, what is your opinion? Because now we can hear about this NPA and Zondo Commission, that NPA got now only access to the Zondo Commission documentation. Isn't this strange to you, at least strange to me? Because it shouldn't be done immediately after releasement, because now NPA should start looking for these cases and whether recover the money or punish the people, but only now. What do you think about it?
Well, look, I'm not clear what you're saying, and I have to just put it on pause for now. If I get a chance, I'll comment after the news. I'm not too sure exactly what Janus is trying to say. What do I think about it? But let me just get my thoughts together. It's 5:30. Let's get the news headlines. Here's Greg Cross.
Thank you so much, Ashraf. A quick look at those headlines. The CEO of the Black Business Councils commended the KZN Police Commissioner for the action taken against extortion rackets. Johannesburg Emergency Services says the cause of the fire at the country club in Auckland Park is currently unknown. And the US Secretary of State accused Iran of supplying ballistic missiles to Russia. A full update at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good
afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N12 R24 westbound in Bedford View is queuing on both routes towards Giluli's interchange. The M1 southbound is queuing through Crown interchange towards Boysons. Houghton Drive southbound in Parktown has delays towards St. Patrick Road, and Barry Herzog Avenue northbound in Melville is slow moving towards Judith Road. In KZN, the N3 westbound in Ashburton has a stationary truck at Linfield Park. The N2 northbound has a stationary vehicle before Subai Drive exit, and the R102 southbound is slow moving near Old North Coast Road. In Cape Town, Victoria Road in Salt River has a crash reported at Queen's Park Avenue. Viking Road westbound in Epping is queuing towards the N7 Jakes Harville Drive. Lisbeck Parkway southbound in Observatory is queuing towards the N2 highway, and Strandfontein Road southbound in Strandfontein is slow moving towards Spine Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right, we're clearly going to talk about football, eh?
And I'm all smiles because South Africa beat South Sudan 3-2 in their 2025 Africa Cup of Nations qualifier. Talent Mbata scored deep in added time to help Bafana claim a first win in Group K. The other goals were scored by Oswin Appelis for South Africa, who scored a brace. And the results see South Africa second in Group K, level on points with Uganda. Meanwhile, Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Gayton McKenzie, says that he doesn't have confidence in the South African Football Association until the results of Bafana improve.
I told the man that you're talking about, Dr. Denny Jordan, and I told Safa, I give you two deliverables. I'm the ultimate accounting authority when it comes to football and sport in this country. I said to them, qualify for the World Cup, qualify for the African Nations Cup. I'm giving them all the support now. But I can't be giving people support until kingdom come. That's not before me.
Well, Bafana have not qualified for the World Cup since 2002 in South Korea and Japan through the qualifiers, but entered the 2010 World Cup as host. The team is now back in the top rankings in African football, but McKenzie doesn't mince his words. He says that if Bafana doesn't qualify for the 2025 AFCON and the next World Cup, heads must roll.
A country like a country like ours, qualifying for the World Cup, qualifying for the African Nations Cup, those things are not even difficult. If Burkina Faso and those countries that don't have our type of money in sport, do you know that we are the most funded league on the African continent, the PSL? How come that we can't win the African Nations Cup? How come that we can't be accepted in the World Cup? We mustn't accept mediocrity. I'm going to make sure I'm public about it. They know it. I know it. For now, they have my support. But soon, if they don't qualify, we must get people that can qualify. This is a national asset we're talking about. This is not, says me bra, or I know you. No.
Well, there you have it, Ashraf. As to what you asked earlier on, is he interfering or not?
So what do you think?
Listen, I feel like SAFA needs a wake-up call, one way or the other. They need a wake-up call because, we can't have an organization working the same way that they've been working for years in, years out. So if it means for a sports minister to come and say, hey, do something and bring in the results, then let it be. However, I'm not sure about him saying that it's very easy to qualify. Like, is it really easy to qualify for the World Cup?
He's naive. So I think he's a disruptor. And that's good. We need disruptors. In fact, we need disruptors for our health system. As per the Tom London story, we really need that across the board. So that's fine. But so if he's agitating for change, I think, and his energy that he brings in, I think is great. Okay. But he's got to be very careful where he says, heads must roll and we can't just be broochies and all that type of stuff. Yeah. Because the point is you can't actually interfere with selection.
Yeah.
If you interfere with selection, then there's political interference, and he's the political head of the ministry, but he's actually not the head of SAFA, and he's not the head of Bafana,
Perhaps he's going to influence it with money, because he keeps saying, I'm not going to support if the results are not coming in. So perhaps if SAFA gets to a point where the results are not coming in and they need money, he's basically saying you won't be able to turn.
Well, we must see how much support they're getting across the board. I don't have the numbers, right?
Yeah.
The other part where I think he's wrong is that the PSL may be and I don't have the numbers, it may potentially be the biggest league in Africa, or maybe Egypt could be very close by anyway. But that doesn't translate into the national team. That's the Premier Soccer League. The national body is SAFA. So there are players who play for the PSL who are not South Africans. Just like the English Football League has got some of the most stellar players in the world who don't represent England.
True.
They're two separate entities and they have separate interests. The question you should be asking is, how do we translate league excellence, if we have, into national excellence? And I completely concur with that. But he still can't directly interfere, because FIFA will boot them out of FIFA. They've done that before, and they will do so.
Well, Sports Minister, if you're listening, there you go. Still staying with football, though, Harry Kane is set to become the 10th male England player to reach 100 caps, and the first men's centurion since Wayne Rooney reached the milestone back in November 2014 when England faced Finland tonight. He is England's all-time top scorer with 66 goals and 99 internationals, and since his debut in March 2015, the former Tottenham player has made 86 starts for his country and been captain 72 times.
This is one that I'm extremely proud of. I think it shows great consistency over a long period of time. I think when you look at some of the other players who have achieved it, some of our greatest ever players. So something I'm really excited for. I have my family there to, enjoy the moment as well. And I think for sure a moment when I'm retired that I'll probably look back on with immense pride. But I'm excited. I'm excited for the game. I'm excited to be back at Wembley, and I just hope it can be a special night all round with a win and hopefully a goal as well.
In rugby, Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus recalled hooker Johan Grobler to his 28-man squad for the short tour to Argentina, where they will face Los Pumas in Santiago on the 21st of September in their penultimate Castle Lager Rugby Championship clash. Erasmus opted to rest 7 players who have had a heavy workload in the last few months, with an eye on the final round of the competition in Nelspruit against Argentina on the 28th of September. Then in motorsport, Adrian Newey says that he has joined Aston Martin to help lead them to the Formula One World Championship. The 65-year-old designer's new contract with the title of Managing Technical Partner was announced this morning at the team's F1 base at Silverton. Newey, who is regarded as the greatest F1 designer in history, has also become an Aston Martin shareholder. Then finally, in tennis, Australia's hopes of ending the 21-year title drought in Davis Cup has suffered a blow, with Alex de Minaur ruled out of the group stage due to a lingering problem with his hip. De Minaur made a run to the US Open quarterfinals, but was hampered by the hip as he exited the Grand Slam in straight sets defeat by Briton Jack Draper. And on that note, a big congratulations again to Bafana Bafana. I didn't think we would struggle as we struggled against South Sudan. However, at the end of the day, we have 3 points in the bag.
And we've discussed it. So more sport to me. Our own Minister of Sport, I forgot about her role as the Minister of Sport. Tomorrow, yeah.
Stamps and Nigati have a secret plan to grab maximum points, but the Eagles refuse to travel back to West Africa empty-handed. The South confronts the West. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Witness the beauty of African football. Eswatini versus Mali on Tuesday, 10 September at 3 p.m. Live at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Hey Mike, congratulations on your retirement.
Thanks, Andile. Are you preparing for it?
Yes, but not just for myself.
For you and?
For me and my employees.
Oh.
Since we moved to Old Mutual Corporate, their retirement funds have not only been safe and secure, but gaining competitive returns through exposure to diverse investment markets.
Impressive.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
Weeknights on S3 are anything but ordinary. BBC Primetime brings you the best of British television from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. You love drama? Then step into the world of Luther as he cracks down on criminals terrorizing the streets of London Monday to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Top Gear will have you falling in love and rolling in laughter as Jeremy Clarkson and his team take you on an automotive journey like no other. Monday to Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Channel your best entertainment with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's get to the markets. The SAFM market update hosted today by Dudu Ramela. Hi, Dudu.
Hello, Ashraf. A very good evening to the listeners as well. We get straight into it with Henku Kriel, MoneyWeb's contributors in terms of how the markets fared today. Hello, Henku.
Hello, Dudu, and good evening to Ashraf and Tumi, and good evening to all of the listeners. In the US at the moment, the Dow Jones is trading 0.5% down. The S&P 500 is 0.1% weaker, but the Nasdaq is looking up and at this stage 0.3% stronger. And in Europe, their stocks finished quite mixed. A short while ago, the FTSE 100 closed 0.8% down. The DAX lost 1% today, and the CAC 40 in France gained 0.2%. Unfortunately, our stock exchange also finished in the green this afternoon. It gained 0.25% today, closing at a level of 81,642 points. The industrial index gained 0.2% today. The financial index was 1.1% stronger, but the resources index lost 1.6%. And the reason for the resources index and its sharp decrease were these following companies like Anglo Gold, which lost 6% today. Harmony finished 2.5% weaker. Sibanye-Stillwater 2.2% down. ARM, and one of the big ones, Anglo, finished 1.7% weaker. And another big one, Glencore, finished the day 1.5% weaker. But there were some companies that gave stronger performances today, like Premier Foods. It gained 6.5% today. Sappi, PSG, and Italtile, they each finished 4% up. And Implats, Mr. Price, and Tiger Brand each gained 2.5% today. Then if we have a look at the exchange rate, at the moment, we're paying 17 Rand and 90 cents for a US dollar, 19 Rand 76 for a euro, 11 Rand 92 for an Australian dollar, and 23 Rand and 40 cents for a British pound. And on the commodities market, the price of gold is $2,511 an ounce, silver trading at $28.30, platinum $945, and palladium $967 an ounce. And it's very nice to see that the oil price is coming down sharply at the moment, trading at $69.40 a barrel. And then lastly but not least, the price of a Bitcoin is trading at $56,800, and that is 1,040,000 Rand. And Dudu, that's how the markets performed.
Henku Kriel, thank you very much for that update, MoneyWeb's contributor. Here's what you can look forward to come 6 p.m. Ashraf. We're going to be speaking to TAG, the owners of Mall of Africa and Garden Route, among others. They've announced a healthy set of results, and so did food producer Lipstar, whose products include lancewood and denim mushrooms, among others. They've reported a strong first half. We're going to be speaking to the CEO of Lipstar, Charles de Villiers. We're also going to be taking a look at the issue of infrastructure development on the African continent, yes, all 55 countries, and taking a look at what needs to be done to bolster infrastructure development, more so when we speak of economic growth, because of the projections that have been made by the African Development Bank Group, more so in their latest report, the Macroeconomic Performance and Outlook report. And then we're going to be speaking all things the agricultural sector, because following that trip to China by South Africa's delegation for the Africa-China Summit, they're feeling quite optimistic this time around. They'll tell us what's different about the agreements that they've entered into with Beijing. All that and more coming up at 6 p.m. It's back to you, Ashraf.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, what we're going to do, in fact, we did say we'll talk about this. We have this feature called Winning, and we'll do that just now with two talented young South Africans that comes up shortly. But for now, an update on what happened at the Johannesburg Country Club, a club that I can see everything, well, from the top, bird's eye view, literally from where I'm sitting, right, on the 6th floor of the SABC buildings here, where the SAFM studios are. But let's find out what really happened and what's the position now with Robert Mulaudzi, who's the Joburg EMS spokesperson. Robert, appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting to the National Pulse.
Good afternoon to the listeners.
Thank you. So what should have been a quiet day suddenly became very hectic after lunch, right?
Yes, this afternoon around 4, we got a call that there is a fire at the Johannesburg Country Club. We immediately dispatched our vehicles, our fire engines on site. We got on site, the building was well alight. We managed to evacuate the people who were inside the building. Right now, we can confirm that we don't have any injuries which has been sustained during this fire incident. And also we can confirm that the fire has been contained into the area of only the reception area and also the dining hall. That is where there's an extensive damage in terms of the fire. So that is where we are now. We're happy that we managed to contain the fire, not to spread into nearby adjacent buildings, which could have destroyed the whole part of the building. So we're happy about that. So right now we are focusing on that to make sure that we contain it into only the dining hall and also the reception area.
Okay, so I've certainly been familiar with the reception and the dining hall, having attended and managed, program directed many events there, so I'm very familiar with it, right? So you're saying that is damaged, and I would take it that's severely damaged. Is there still fire? I see lots of smoke. I see lots of smoke coming through now.
Fire. Right now we are doing what we call damping down, like we're making sure that we remove all the debris on the roof, because most of the parts of the roof in that area of the reception has been affected by totally gutted. So we are making sure that there is no smoke and all that. So we are extinguishing the hotspots, and you see the smoke now, it's already changed the color. It's no longer as it was earlier on when we came in here.
Yeah, that I can. It's strange as I talk to you. I can see exactly as well from where I am. Right. What about you? You mentioned no injuries, and I'm delighted at that. Thank goodness for that. Were there at one stage any danger that people may be injured, hurt, or even potential burnt or loss of life?
Yeah, there were workers who were inside the building, but we're happy that not even one of them sustained any injuries during this fire incident.
Okay. What is the cause of it?
At this stage, the cause also of the fire is still unknown, so our investigations will be conducted as soon as we are done with the firefighting operations.
I do know there was an event there over the last few days. You may be familiar with it as well, right? With lots of lights and things, maybe some sort of a concert. I mean, any link to that? It was almost set up in exactly the same spots.
Yeah, no, so far, no, we have not yet ascertained any information regarding that, but I think the investigation will be conducted as soon as the fire has been extinguished.
Okay, and can you confirm that the fire actually started in that dining room area, or was it outside?
Yes, that is where it's contained, yes. That's where the area, which makes sense because that is where most of the activities are happening, in the area of the reception and the dining hall area. Yes.
I see. And traffic around that area, I would take it still quite severe. It's peak hour in Joburg. Still traffic.
Yeah, the motorists can avoid because we are inside the building. The traffic is not really affected, but it's just people who want to see what is happening out there. But otherwise, the motorists can be able to drive throughout the whole of Empire without any disturbances, because we are right inside the building itself.
Okay. How? Just a quick thought from the time that the fire started to when you got called. How long did that take in minutes?
Yeah, it was I think around maybe between 10 and 15 minutes, because we had our vehicles on nearby around the area, so it didn't take us longer to respond to the incident.
I see. Okay, and well, thank goodness you did. When you did, anything longer can be hugely problematic. Is there anything else you want to tell us in conclusion?
No, I think so far, yes. That's what we have now at this stage.
Okay, let's leave it there. Thank you for your time then. Robert Mulawudzi, the Joburg EMS spokesperson, referring and speaking about the fire at the Johannesburg Country Club that started around 4 o'clock today. As you've heard, no injuries, thank goodness for that, but clearly damage to the kitchen, canteen, a dining room area at the club, which obviously then overlooks into the golf course as well, and there are tennis courts and I think paddle courts, all of that within short distance of each other. Right, we'll get to the feature we call Winning right after this.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Right, so let's get to it. We certainly love talking about winning in all aspects, because it certainly is a natural pick up and lift off for all of us, right? So today we speak to the winners of this year's Youth for Safer South Africa Debate Championship. This past weekend, the Safer South Africa Foundation announced the Mpumalanga as the province as the winner of this year's debate championship. There Western Cape and Eastern Cape took second, and then, well, Eastern Cape third, right? So let's speak then to the two winners, Toriso Skosana, and then we also have Nkanyiso Mjaji, and we do have them both on the line, right? So, Toriso, hello.
Hello.
Good talking to you, and Nkanyiso, hello to you too.
Hello, sir.
Thank you. Right. Well, good to talk to both of you, right? So we'll talk one at a time. Now, Toriso, maybe first up to you. You're the captain of the overall team, right? But both of you are learners at Lowveld High School in Mpumalanga region. So, I mean, fantastic and well done to not just the two of you, but certainly to the entire school and the province for winning that for winning the debating championship.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, tell us what you guys had to do.
Okay, we firstly had to intensely train. They had given us a topic, and each of us had to research that topic and formulate our own speeches relating to that topic. And then after training, we were able to travel to Johannesburg on the 5th of September, and then on the 7th of September, we debated on the final day.
Okay, and what was your topic?
Okay, well, the topic was about the government national unity and a basic minimum program of priorities that sets up South Africa for success in various sectors. So there were 5 speakers on the stage, and the first speaker was acting as president. I was first speaker. My second speaker, who's who's on the line today, was the second speaker, which is the Minister of Education. Third speaker was Chantal Mbebe, the Minister of Police. Fourth speaker was Virginia Mbanza, the Minister of Employment and Labor. And fifth speaker was Junior Mgwambe, the Minister of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. So essentially, as president, I was just laying the groundwork for our collective journey. I made the audience aware of the GNU, what it is, its aims, its principles. And then the different ministers had to set a basic minimum program of priorities that tackles the most important things in their sector. So the Minister of Education, which Nkanyiso will go more into, had to set some strategies to revolutionize education, and all the other ministers in their various sectors.
Okay, that's wonderful. So in fact, it is a debate of different schools based upon effectively the same topic, but it's how you then put forward that topic across, right, Toriso?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Let me then bring in the Minister of Education, okay, Nkanyiso Mjaji, also grade 11 learner at Lowveld High School. What was it like for you being, the second speaker, but speaking on education?
For me, it was quite an eye-opener because, firstly, we're learning, but I don't think we really take into consideration how much work takes to getting us where we are. We see things at face value. We don't know how the school management works, how the different constitutions of how schools should work are developed. So my role specifically taught me a lot, which I did not know. And I really think it helped because now I have a deeper understanding of how basic education works.
But then once you had it, you then had to effectively sell your concept to the nation, right? I mean, that's really your role as the Minister of Education. So perhaps are you able to share maybe 3 key bullet points that emerged in terms of your presentation?
Firstly, school management. I feel like I highlighted the importance of having proper school management because that's one of the reasons why most schools are in the state that they are in. They do not have leaders who were adequately prepared for their respective positions. And another thing that I noticed was how our curriculums are shaped. Private school curriculums are better than ours, which I feel we could also improve. For instance, I mentioned in my speech that I feel like we should include home economy into our curriculums so that we can help train our children for this fast-changing world, which is something I feel is a good thing because lately the unemployment rate is high. And one of the main reasons for people not getting employed is because they do not have experience or they are not skilled enough for that. I feel like we could include these skills into our curriculums and we could help adequately prepare our children for the world.
I think that's so important. And, your point about management of schools is critical in the same way you see who runs a business, who runs a political party, who runs a government, who runs a sports team. If you have poor management in all those institutions, you actually then have a poor institution. Let me then bring you back in, Toriso Skosana. Overall, how did you find the experience for yourself? I mean, not just as the leader of your team, but as the president, but ensuring that your team obviously works together. And I take it there was a lot of collaboration in terms of sharing of points and then allocating it correctly.
Yeah, 100%. The experience for me was fun, but it was also a lot because as president, aka as the first speaker, you set the tone for the team. So if you're good, the team gets hyped. The team gets hyped to do better. And if you're bad, then you just start the team in the leg. And so one thing that my coach and my teammates emphasize so much is that, Teresa, you have to start out with a banger. You have to wow the crowd. So that much pressure on me at that time was extremely nerve-wracking. But through collaboration, as you said, I had amazing teammates such as Nkanyiso, Chantal, and the others who I could learn from, who I can pick up, their strengths from, who could pick up strengths from me as well, who gave some pointers to my speech and to my presentation, and I gave pointers to their speeches and presentations. So through that collaboration and teamwork, I was able to effectively perform my role as president, and I believe I blew the waters away.
Well, there you are, and as you said, start with a bang. What about Nkanyiso? What about? Now that you guys won, and you didn't just do well for yourself, you won for your province, right? What does it feel like? What does it mean to you?
It means a lot because, firstly, like you said, it's we won for our province, but we also won in battle against the entire country. It's not just something that we're going to take lightly, it's something that we're going to cherish, and we've learned a lot from it. So it definitely means a lot to me.
What about Teresa? In fact, I'll ask you this first. I mean, do you have designs on getting into politics and being presidential one day?
Oh well, I keep getting asked this question, and unfortunately, I do not. I do not see myself in that area of work.
Where do you see yourself?
I see myself in the media, see myself in PR, marketing, communication, such areas.
Well, if you're in media or if you have an interest in that and you're visiting Johannesburg and if you want to come and say hi on air, spend some time with us, that invitation, the door's been opened up. As you can, I've just opened the door for you to grab, right? So there you are. Take advantage of it. And what about you? I mean, what do you have designs on?
Unfortunately, I also have no desires of touring in politics one day. My dream is aviation. That's what I aspire to be.
Okay, that line's just gone horribly bare, but I get the aviation bit, so it's almost like the Sundowns motto of the sky is the limit, or maybe even beyond the skies, right? Well, let's leave it at that, both of you. I think fabulous that you both have won for yourselves, your school, Lowveld High, must be thrilled, and then effectively representing your province. And, on this show, we like to highlight winners. We love to deal with champions, and you both are, because collectively, we as a nation, then, if we up our game, we then have the hallmarks of building, what I would call a champion nation. So well done to both of you, to your school and to your province, and please pass on that message from all of us. Thank you for your time. Toriso, Nkanyiso. Thank you. There we are. Okay, that's the show. We'll do another feature on winning tomorrow as we wrap up the show, but don't forget, it is the National Pulse. Different things drive us, different days, different times, all of it. Thanks to you and the time that you give to listening. It's really, really appreciated. Let's get the news now. It's 6 o'clock. Here's Greg Hose.
Thank you again, Ashraf. In this news update, praise for police in tackling extortion and the country club in Auckland Park on fire. Good evening. The CEO of the Black Business Council, Khaki Matabane, has commended the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner for the action taken against extortion